Chapter 1809. The aura of death assaulted Yi Shiwen's face. It contained a strong power of death. Yi Shiwen's hair was brushed by it, and a withered yellow color appeared on his hair in an instant. Yi Shiwen couldn't help but be surprised by this. The power of death here was much stronger than he had imagined. He hadn't even entered the undead abyss. He was merely in the sky above the periphery, but it was already so terrifying. He didn't dare to imagine what the interior of the undead abyss was like. No wonder Qin Lai had said that entering the interior of the undead abyss was akin to burning one's lifespan. Wasn't that the case? Although there were some heavenly treasures that could replenish one's lifespan that was being burned, those were the most precious heavenly treasures. Even profound life realm experts were only qualified to possess a few. Therefore, most people didn't dare to take the risk here. Yi Shiwen gazed into the distance. The sky was filled with dark clouds. These dark clouds weren't rain clouds, but endless power of death. The clouds were condensed from the aura of death. If an ordinary person were to come into contact with even a little bit of it, they would immediately lose their vitality and die. Even Yi Shiwen and Qin Lai, two profound life realm experts who had already comprehended the mysteries of the power of life, would be affected, let alone other people. There was a boundless dark abyss in the middle of the endless dark clouds. Countless roars of the dead could be heard coming from the dark abyss. It seemed as if they would crawl out of it at any moment. The roars of the dead were more terrifying than the roars of any living creature or ferocious beast. This was a pure world of death. That should be the dead soul abyss. Yi Shiwen asked. There are even some existences at the profound death realm among them. There are also rumors that there is a death god slumbering at the bottom of the abyss of dead souls. The entire abyss of dead souls is basically the domain of this death god. Otherwise, how could there be so many undead souls? Although these are only rumors and no one has ever confirmed them, there is no doubt that it is enough to show how dangerous the abyss of dead souls is. Under normal circumstances, the two of us should be able to protect ourselves even if we enter the abyss of dead souls. However, it is inevitable that we will encounter some powerful, profound death realm undead souls. We must be careful. And Yi Shiwen nodded and kept Qin Lai's advice in mind. No matter what, Qin Lai was the real boss here. At least, Qin Lai knew more than Yi Shiwen. At this time, there was no harm in listening to more information. Let's go. We shouldn't stay here for too long, lest we attract some ferocious creatures from the abyss. Let's go to the capital of the Dark Nation first. The two hurriedly rushed to the capital of the Dark Nation. The border of the Dark Nation was thousands of miles away from the abyss of dead souls. Even so, it was already the closest country to the abyss of dead souls. It was very difficult for ordinary creatures to survive in such a place where death lingered. Even profound realm experts would be affected. It was conceivable that within 1,000 miles of the abyss of dead souls, not even a blade of grass could grow. After crossing the border of the Dark Nation, Yi Shiwen gradually saw some signs of human habitation. Cities and villages constantly passed by under his feet. This suddenly made him feel as if his horizons had been broadened. There were all kinds of races in this Dark Nation. He also saw some humans, demon race, sea clan, and even the Hunter Clan alliance here. There were even some unknown races that he didn't know. It was unknown how many species there were in the myriad heavens and myriad realms. Even an imperial emperor would not be able to recognize all of them. The ones that everyone knew were the few species that had produced imperial emperors. Their names had spread throughout the myriad heavens and myriad realms, and no one dared to underestimate them. However, these people all had one thing in common, and that was their constitutions were all dark constitutions. They seemed to have been eroded by the power of death. Even though they were very far away, the creatures that had lived here for generations had their constitutions transformed into dark constitutions under the accumulation of the aura of death. The martial arts that they cultivated were also related to darkness and death. Seeing that Yi Shiwen was somewhat puzzled, Qin Lai explained, "This is different from our own worlds. In the Xian world, a large number of experts from various worlds have come to this world. Over the past countless years, they and their descendants have gradually multiplied in the Xian world. Because the races here are too complex, it is very common for people of different races to live together. It is completely different from the various races in the Desolate Era. In fact, there are many mixed bloods, and they are also very tyrannical. Yi Xuan nodded. It was indeed so. The Xian world had a long history, but most of it was occupied by experts from various worlds. It was impossible to form a structure like the ancient Desolate Era. Moreover, in the Xian world, everyone has the supreme goal of proving their Tao. So compared to proving their Tao, the righteousness of the race is not worth mentioning at all. Qin Lai said, the so-called race is just another way to continue life. If someone can achieve eternal life, who would care about race? Although not everyone is like this, but in the Xian world, the atmosphere is like this. It is completely different from us. May I ask, what powerful forces are there in the Xian world? Is the Heaven Wasteland Palace considered powerful? Yi Xuan asked. Heaven Wasteland Palace? What's wrong? Did you offend the Heaven Wasteland Palace? That's not good. Those people from the Heaven Wasteland Palace are a bunch of lunatics who will do anything to prove their Tao. Qin Lai said with a frown. The Heaven Wasteland Palace is one of the few overlords in the Xian world. It is very impressive, just like the few great races of the ancient Desolate Era. If you really offend the Heaven Wasteland Palace, I'm afraid things will not be so easy to solve. Yi Xuan could not help but smile bitterly when he heard this. He did not just obtain the Heaven Wasteland Palace. He simply slaughtered the disciples of the Heaven Wasteland Palace. It is said that the Xian realm experts in the Xian world are as numerous as dogs. In that case, the strength of the Heaven Wasteland Palace is really terrifying. Yi Xuan said, Xian realm experts are as numerous as dogs? How is that possible? Qin Lai shook his head with a smile and said, this is just a rumor. Do they think that Xian realm experts are cabbages that can be found by the roadside? Waves after waves of worthless. Although it can be said that many Xian realm experts will come to the Xian world, Xian realm experts are not so worthless. For the Xian world, there is only one in a million. Although it is much more than other worlds, it is not to such an exaggerated extent. Xian realm experts are still experts among experts in the Xian world. Ordinary people may not even see one in their lifetime. However, the strength of the Heaven Wasteland Palace is indeed a reality. Furthermore, the Heaven Wasteland Palace has been rooted in the Xian world for countless years. They teach without discrimination and accept experts from all races into the Heaven Wasteland Palace. Their strength is naturally incomparably tyrannical. This is different from our martial sect. If nothing unexpected happens, our martial sect will only accept people from the human race. In this aspect, we are indeed incomparable to the Heaven Wasteland Palace. Qin Lai said, however, if you really offend the Heaven Wasteland Palace, don't be afraid. If Brother Yi has the intention to join our martial sect, then even the Heaven Wasteland Palace will not be able to do anything to you. The Heaven Wasteland Palace is a little tyrannical in the Xian world. In terms of foundation, how can it be compared to our martial sect? Qin Lai's face revealed an incomparably proud expression. The martial sect was a well-known golden signboard in the Xian world. Wherever the disciples of the martial sect went, people would give them some face. He looked at Yi Xuan. Although he knew that there was not much hope, he still wanted to rope Yi Xuan into the martial sect. If a sect wanted to develop and grow, foundation and history were one thing. However, the most important thing was to have a steady flow of talents. Without a doubt, Yi Xuan was a top talent. Well, I don't have that thought for the time being. Moreover, if I get into trouble, I will hide in your martial sect. If that's the case, I'm afraid that your martial sect will be entangled with trouble in the future. Yi Xuan said with a laugh and tactfully rejected Qin Lai's invitation. Qin Lai opened his mouth and wanted to say, do you think that just anyone can make our martial sect lower itself to invite you? Their martial sect had a long history of fame in the heaven realm. Even people from other worlds came to learn from them. If Yi Xuan did not have the strength to do so, he would not even consider inviting him. However, although Yi Xuan rejected Qin Lai, Qinlai did not say anything and continued to explain some things about the Xian world to Yi Shiwen. This allowed Yi Shiwen to have an intuitive understanding of the current Xian world. The Heaven Wasteland Palace was indeed a giant figure. Their forces were deeply rooted throughout the Xian world, and their forces were even more complicated. Although they were not without opponents, for Yi Shiwen, they were still a behemoth that was difficult to deal with. As the two talked, it did not take long before they arrived at the capital of the Dark Nation. This was an extremely huge city. Yi Shiwen glanced around and was afraid that the number of creatures living in this city had already exceeded 100 million. Rather than saying it was a city, it was in fact already a compact country. This was a country within a country. It was impossible for ordinary people to form such a city. Only in the country of warriors could it be possible to form such a scale of city. The two landed in front of the city gate. At this time, there was already someone waiting for a long time. "Mr. Qin, our Royal Highness has been waiting for a long time." The servant of the prince's mansion came forward and saluted. Chapter 1810. "Mr. Qin, His Highness has been waiting for you for a long time." The manservant of the prince's mansion stepped forward and saluted. Yi Shiwen glanced at the manservant. Although he was just a manservant, he had a dignified appearance and an extraordinary appearance. Yi Shiwen could tell that the Dark Nation was much more tyrannical than any other nation that Yi Shiwen knew. Yi Shiwen could even faintly feel that there were some king-level experts lurking in the shadows. He could even feel the aura of profound life realm experts. The strength of the entire Dark Nation was probably not inferior to the royal and marquis clans of the ancient desolate era. And Qinlai nodded and went straight to the capital with Yi Shiwen. Along the way, there was a sea of people. Although there were all kinds of strange people, most of them were in human form. Occasionally, there were some who didn't want to maintain their human form and directly appeared in the form of strange beasts. They passed through the streets and alleys at an extremely fast speed. However, because the capital was too big and they couldn't fly, it took them half an hour to finally reach the prince's mansion. And on this journey, Yi Shiwen finally had a certain understanding of this prince. The current king of the Dark Nation had been on the throne for more than 1,000 years. The country was rich and the people were abundant. Although there were undead creatures crawling out of the undead abyss from time to time, but generally speaking, the country was prosperous. The king had a total of hundreds of children. Many of them couldn't even recognize them. Some of them might have even forgotten about the king himself. Among the princes and princesses of these king, there were some outstanding ones. Among them, the 13th prince was one of the most outstanding ones. In the current imperial court of the Dark Nation, he was a popular candidate for the new emperor. He had a lot of influence in the imperial court. Although he was only ranked 13th, he was ranked in the forefront among the hundreds of princes and princesses of the Dark Nation. He had become an adult hundreds of years ago. Now, he had established his own mansion and had a lot of prestige in the Dark Nation. Most importantly, he was also a mixed-blood human. Since the country of darkness had been passed down to this day, there had been countless creatures living in it. Many bloodlines had long been mixed to the point where they couldn't be distinguished. The Dark Country's king had 30,000 beauties in his harem. Among them, there were beauties of various races. That was why the princes and young masters were mostly mixed-blooded. Naturally, there was no lack of princes with human bloodlines. Among the human princes, the 13th prince was one of the more outstanding ones. He had formed an alliance with many princes of the human bloodline, and his influence was not small. Especially for the martial sect, if there was no way to choose a human king, then choosing a prince with the most human bloodline to ascend the throne was the best way. This was especially true for martial arts grandmasters who could not devote all their power to the Xian world. Supporting a local power was the best way. A strong dragon could not suppress a local snake, let alone a martial arts grandmaster who had not focused all their attention on the Xian World Conference. The 13th Prince's mansion covered a vast area and was extremely luxurious. The floor was paved with white bricks, carved beams, jade pillars. Birds and beasts were vivid and lifelike. There were also many ancient formations and heavy guards. It was one of the safest places in the capital of the Dark Nation. Before the two of them had time to step into the mansion, they heard a hearty voice. Then, a young man in a royal robe strode out and came directly in front of the two of them. "Mr. Chin, I've been waiting for a long time." At this time, the young man cupped his hands and said with a smile. He was a young man in his 20s with sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes. He looked quite handsome. What made Yi Shiwen even more impressed was that this young man was actually a master of the King Division. He could not help but be secretly surprised. If he guessed correctly, this person should be the 13th prince. However, he had already entered the King Division at such a young age. In the Yi family, only Yi Fan, Yi Kuang, Yi Qiong, and a few others had entered the King Division. This young man was actually so amazing. It could be seen that no matter what, his cultivation talent was definitely not bad. Looking at his long and drawn-out breaths, the entire world seemed to faintly appear to be breathing at the same frequency as him. One could well imagine exactly how powerful this youth was. It was likely that he would step into the profound life stage very soon. He was far from what an ordinary king-tier expert could compare to. In the Yi family, probably only Yi Fan, who was constantly under Yi Shiwen's guidance, could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Compared to him, Yi Qiong and Yi Kuang were probably still a lot worse. Yi Shiwen did not care if it was just a master of the King Division. No matter how powerful a master of the King Division was, it was impossible to threaten him. What really shocked him was that the 13th prince had such strength. The strength of the Country of Darkness was probably much more tyrannical than he had imagined. Just the 13th prince alone was already so amazing. Then, the other princes who could compete with him would not be much worse. Based on this, Yi Shiwen concluded that the Country of Darkness and the entire Xian world was far more prosperous than he had imagined. Although he did not know how it was compared to the peak of the Ancient Desolation, he was afraid that it was a bit stronger than the current Ancient Desolation. Most importantly, so many profound life realm masters had come with many orthodoxies. Over the years, countless profound life realm masters had come and left behind their own orthodoxies. Their hidden strength should be tyrannical and terrifying. "I'm sorry to have kept your highness waiting for a long time. I want to pick up a friend to search for your highness. This is my good friend, Yi Shiwen. This time, I invited him to help me." Qin Lai smiled and introduced Yi Shiwen to Yi Shiwen. The 13th prince had already seen Yi Shiwen and was somewhat curious about Yi Shiwen's origin. Although Yi Shiwen had hidden his strength very well and the 13th prince couldn't see through Yi Shiwen's strength, it was enough to explain the problem. A person who could be friends with Qin Lai naturally wouldn't be too bad. However, at this time a somewhat embarrassed expression appeared on his face. He said, "But this time we have a limited number of people. I'm afraid it's a bit inappropriate to add another person." He looked at Qin Lai. Obviously, he did not take Yi Shiwen seriously. Or rather, he simply did not care about what Yi Shiwen thought. Yi Shiwen remained silent, but Qin Lai frowned slightly. His gaze was somewhat sharp as he looked at the 13th prince and said, "Your Highness, this should be different from what we discussed before. This operation can be said to be exceptionally difficult and dangerous. We don't know what kind of existences there are in the depths of the abyss. Naturally, it would be better to have one more person to help." Yi Shiwen was also somewhat curious in his heart. He didn't know what the 13th prince was doing. According to Qin Lai, profound realm experts were rare even in the Xian world. They belonged to the experts among the experts. If the 13th prince could rope in a profound life realm expert, he would be more than happy to do so. Why did he have such a disgusted look on his face? Countless thoughts went through Yi Shiwen's mind, but his expression did not change. Just as he was feeling a little puzzled, he heard a deep voice coming from the palace. "Qin Lai, there's something you don't know. With the help of the Divine Union, His Highness will naturally not be short of manpower. The current number of people has already been fixed. I'm afraid adding one more person will be useless." A sturdy figure came out of the prince's mansion, along with this deep and resounding voice. Yi Shiwen fixed his eyes on this man and saw that he was about 30 years old or so. He was clad in a sturdy outfit and was walking like a tiger. He arrived in front of everyone with a whistling sound. However, this person was different from ordinary people. Behind his back was a pair of naked wings that only had bones left. This showed that he was not from the human race. When he heard the two words, divine union, Qin Lai's expression changed and a frightening, killing intent flashed in his eyes. Gu Yi, how dare you interfere in the affairs of the martial sect? Are you tired of living? Qin Lai said coldly. His expression suddenly changed and his aura crushed down like a mountain. It was obvious that he was not friendly towards this man. At this moment, the 13th prince's expression became a little awkward. However, he immediately became a little angry. Qin Lai had torn apart the situation on the spot and had no intention of giving him any face. He was a prince of a nation after all, so he couldn't help but feel a little displeased that he was being ignored like this. He thought about Qin Lai's background, but then he thought about the divine union and immediately regained his confidence. Humph. This man, Gu Yi, only let out a cold snort before completely shattering Qin Lai's oppressive aura that filled the sky. Qin Lai, you don't have to say anything else. You don't have to use the name of the martial sect to scare me. It's simply useless. This isn't the heavenly realm, so it's not your turn to act like a tyrant. Gu Yi seemed to be quite afraid of the might of the martial sect. However, he immediately relaxed. After all, this wasn't the heavenly realm. A strong dragon wouldn't suppress a snake in its territory. Moreover, the martial sect hadn't gone all out to invade the mysterious world yet. Who was afraid of who? Both of you, please calm down. At this moment, the 13th prince's face had already changed into a smile. It was as if he wasn't the one who had been angered by Qin Lai just now. He was extremely shrewd and scheming. I invited both of you here to discuss something important. In the future, when I ascend the throne, it will definitely be thanks to both of you. When that time comes, I will need both of your help. Both of you are my backbone, so there's no need to distinguish between us. The more the 13th prince spoke, the uglier Qin Lai's expression became. It was as gloomy as the calm before the storm. Yishuan finally understood what was going on. He was afraid that the 13th prince had a different idea in his heart. Chapter 1811. A fine bird chooses a tree to nest in. This was an unchanging truth. Even the 13th prince was no exception. In this chaotic Xian world, without absolute strength, it was very important to find a backer. This was the same in the true martial domain and the ancient Baron's continent. In other words, it wasn't that he had second thoughts. He was planning to benefit from both sides. The 13th prince was obviously an ambitious person. How could he be willing to be manipulated by one person? If he only had the martial sect as his backer, then his life would be in the hands of the martial sect. However, if he brought in another force, then everything would be different. On the contrary, in order to compete for him, the two forces would only support him even more. To him, there were many benefits. However, doing so was extremely easy to burn themselves by playing with fire. Once one of them was unhappy and unwilling to play, then they might be completely annihilated. How could Yi Shiwen not understand this? He had read a lot of books in his early years. This kind of scheming and resourcefulness could be used in any world. So, he could see through this trick at a glance. In the end, what did he rely on to actually dare to do such a thing? Thinking of this, Yi Shiwen couldn't help but reveal a playful smile on his face. Qin Lai's expression fluctuated between green and white. He was suppressing his anger. Speaking of which, he didn't really care about the 13th prince and treated him as someone of the same level. Now, he was actually fooled by the 13th prince. How could the anger in his heart not burn? However, he could not flare up right now. They had invested too much in the 13th prince, so they could not make a fool out of him in a short period of time. Furthermore, with the martial sect's habit of only supporting forces with human bloodlines, it would not be easy to find someone to replace the 13th prince in a short period of time. Your Highness, this friend of mine is very powerful. Ordinary people aren't his match. When talking about ordinary people, Qin Lai glanced at Gu Yi. The provocation was extremely obvious. At this time, having an extra helper is naturally an extra layer of protection. What do you think, Your Highness? Qin Lai forcefully suppressed the anger in his heart and said coldly. Seeing Qin Lai being humiliated, the 13th prince's expression did not change. Instead, he felt a bit of joy in his heart. Qin Lai had said that he was here to help him, but there was a faint sense of superiority in Qin Lai's words, which made the 13th prince feel quite unhappy. After such a long time, he could finally vent his anger. Powerful? I'd like to see how capable you are to dare say that you're powerful. At this time, Gui looked at Yi Shiwen with a strange smile on his face and immediately attacked brazenly. Boom! There was a loud shattering sound in the void, and the void was instantly shattered by his palm. The big hand rose faster and faster, and directly pressed down towards Yi Shiwen. Bang! This big hand pressed 3 inches above Yi Shiwen's head. It was blocked by his golden divinities, and couldn't advance even an inch. However, that dreadful power had formed an astral wind, and had completely fallen on his body. His black hair was blown all over the sky. Is this all you've got? Gu Yi's face revealed a somewhat sinister smile, as if he could already see Yi Shiwen's fate. He immediately sneered and increased his strength. Countless laws condensed, and then fiercely turned into a big law hand, directly slapping down. Crack, crack! Yi Shiwen's golden divinities began to shatter inch by inch, and the smile on Gu Yi's face became more and more savage. Just when he thought that he could kill Yi Shiwen with one palm, he saw a flash of golden light directly flickering. In a trance, it had already arrived in front of him, and then a big hand instantly grabbed out of the void, directly grabbing towards his neck. He didn't even have time to react, and when he was already in front of him, he felt a terrifying power grabbing from the void, and then his neck was already grabbed by the big hand and fiercely pressed to the ground. Boom! There was a loud bang on the ground, and Gu Yi was instantly pressed to the ground, instantly forming a huge human-shaped pit, and smoke and dust rose in all directions. Everything had happened too fast. In fact, it had happened in the time it takes for a spark to fly off a flint. Gu Yi had attacked Yi Shiwen, but who would have thought that Gu Yi wouldn't be able to block Yi Shiwen's counterattack? He had been captured by Yi Shiwen almost instantly. Gu Yi struggled on the ground, but he felt that the power of his whole body was sealed by a terrifying law, and he couldn't draw out any power at all. He only felt that the hand on his neck was like an iron hoop, firmly holding him, making it a little difficult for him to breathe. After the power of his whole body was sealed, he was like an ordinary person, and was about to be strangled alive by Yi Shiwen in an instant. His eyes flashed with a bit of resentment and a bit of fear. He didn't expect Yi Shiwen's counterattack to be so sharp, so he didn't have time to react at all, and was defeated by Yi Shiwen. If he was prepared, everything would definitely be different. He was roaring in his heart, but he couldn't move. He saw Yi Shiwen looking at him with a somewhat disdainful look, and then said, "You still have a long way to go." The 13th prince didn't expect things to turn out like this. He originally thought that Gui would win, but he actually didn't have the power to fight back, and was defeated in one move. He naturally knew that people who could be introduced by Qin Lai naturally had extraordinary strength, but he didn't expect it to be a little 2F** king extraordinary. In any case, Gu Yi was also a top expert at the early stage of Profound Life Realm, and even fought with Qin Lai in the past. It was precisely because of this that he had the confidence to contend against Qin Lai, because he had Gu Yi's back, who knew that Gu Yi didn't even use the strength of Profound Life Realm, and was defeated by Yi Shiwen. To be precise, it was simply too late. The speed was too fast, and Gu Yi could at least see a flash of golden light, but the others couldn't see anything at all. They only saw Gu Yi's neck being grabbed by Yi Shiwen, and he was almost killed. Then, Yi Shiwen casually threw Gu Yi to the ground as if he was throwing garbage. He didn't even look at him, but even after being thrown to the ground, Gu Yi still couldn't move, and the power of his whole body was sealed. At this time, he was simply like a living dead person. "Since you don't need my help here, then I'll leave. Brother Qin, thank you for bringing me to the Xian world this time. Next, let's go our separate ways." Yi Shiwen glanced at the 13th prince and said, since the 13th prince didn't want to see him, there was no point in him staying. Moreover, It seemed like Qin Lai had no intention of falling out with the 13th prince for the time being. Evidently, he planned to stay and fight for the 13th prince's support. The 13th prince looked at Yi Shiwen with an ugly expression on his face. Yi Shiwen had casually crippled Gu Yi, causing him to lose a great helper. Gu Yi was an expert of the profound life realm, not some cabbage that could be found on the roadside. It was already very difficult for him to win over even one of them. Now, he had died in such an inexplicable manner without even accomplishing anything. However, he didn't dare to do anything. This was a terrifying existence that could cripple an early-stage profound life realm expert. At this time, he started to feel slightly regretful. If Yi Shiwen had gone with them, perhaps it would have been a good choice. At the very least, they wouldn't have ended up like this. More importantly, Gu Yi's cultivation had been sealed by Yi Shiwen. How was he going to explain this to the people of the Divine Union? At this time, he looked at Qin Lai with a pleading gaze. Qin Lai simply pretended not to see it and turned his head away. It was too late to regret it now. What had he done earlier? However, he was also somewhat horrified in his heart. He had long known that Yi Shiwen wasn't simple. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to escape unscathed after wreaking havoc at the ancient Phoenix Realm's wedding. This in itself wasn't something that an ordinary person could do. However, he hadn't expected that Yi Shiwen would actually become so tyrannical in just a dozen years. Although the speed of their exchange had been too fast, and Gu Yi hadn't had the chance to retaliate, how could the 13th prince not be able to see Yi Shiwen's strength? Even if Gu Yi had used his full strength, he still wouldn't have been a match for Yi Shiwen. This was simply asking to be humiliated. He looked at Gu Yi's indignant expression. It was clear that Gu Yi wasn't willing to accept it. He couldn't help but sneer in his heart. What was there to be indignant about? Gu Yi hadn't even seen the situation clearly and still wanted to take revenge? What a joke. However, the stronger Yi Shiwen was, the angrier the 13th prince became. If this matter hadn't happened and he had teamed up with Yi Shiwen, their chances of winning would have undoubtedly been much higher. The 13th prince's gaze towards the 13th prince was filled with even more disgust. If the 13th prince hadn't been chosen by the martial sex upper echelon, he would have already slapped him to death with his temper. Seeing that Qin Lai was ignoring him, the 13th prince instantly became even more depressed. However, he didn't dare to vent his anger. Everyone present was much more tyrannical than him. Profound life realm. Profound life realm. He had never desired to step into the profound life realm so much. If he didn't step into the profound life realm, he would be like an ant in the eyes of these profound realm experts. He had no rights at all. Then, Brother Qin, I'll take my leave first. Yi Shiwen cupped his hands and said. He was very carefree. In any case, it was more convenient for him to be alone. He didn't need to worry about anything. On the contrary, it was more comfortable for him to be around anyone. One last friendly reminder. The seal on this idiot's body will naturally be undone after 3 months. During this period, it's best not to act smart and undo it. Otherwise, you'll regret it. Chapter 18:12. When Gu Yi heard this, he was so infuriated that he bled from all his orifices. This was simply a great humiliation. As a top genius of the Divine Union, he had an illustrious reputation. Given the might of the Divine Union, he was respected almost everywhere he went. Even though Qin Lai had the backing of a martial ancestor, he didn't care much about him. Now, his cultivation had been sealed for 3 whole months. This was simply intolerable. This was a great humiliation, a great humiliation. The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. In an instant, he was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood. Then he cursed, "You human! How dare you seal my cultivation? Do you know who I am? How dare you offend the Divine Union? You must be tired of living. Even if you have the backing of a martial ancestor, don't even think about getting off scot-free." He continued to roar, and his body continued to spew out endless power of death. The pair of bone wings behind him also flapped. He wanted to break through Yi Shiwen's seal and support him to stand up. He wanted to stand up again. Don't even think about struggling. Yi Shiwen immediately formed a hand seal. Suddenly, a seal character appeared in the air and smashed down. once again smashing Gu Yi into the big hole. Prung! The entire floor had completely shattered into powder. The 13th prince, who was watching from the side, was dumbfounded. This was brutal. An expert at the early profound life realm was simply a puppet in his hands. He had suppressed him just like that. He didn't even have the slightest ability to retaliate. It was like the difference between an ant and a giant. Faced with such a tyrannical and savage fellow, even those experts hidden within the king's mansion gathering did not dare to come out upon seeing this scene. What a joke. This was a person who could teach a profound life stage expert a lesson like a dead dog. How could they afford to offend such an existence? At this moment, the 13th prince was filled with regret. He shouldn't have listened to Gu Yi and taught Qin Lai a lesson. Deep down in his heart, he had no intention of chasing the martial sect away. He would only benefit the most when the two forces were competing. If he chased the martial sect away, he would fall into the hands of the divine union. What would be the difference then? This was something an ambitious and ruthless person like him could never accept. Even so, he still wanted to embarrass Qin Lai a little to vent his anger. More importantly, he wanted to show Qin Lai, or the martial arts grandmaster, his strength. He wanted them to not underestimate him and not use his previous standards to measure him. Who would have thought that things would turn out like this? Qin Lai was embarrassed. Everyone could see how ugly his expression was. However, he was also slapped in the face. He thought that he was the external help, the reinforcement, but in the end, he was suppressed so easily. Qin Lai, who was standing on the side, had a very pleased look on his face. In fact, he was just short of saying that Yi Shiwen had done a good job. I don't care who you are. Yi Shiwen slowly walked to Gu Yi's side, then directly stepped on Gu Yi's face, directly stepping on his long shoehorn. I hate people who call my fatherly gang the most. The Divine Alliance is far from being able to scare me. I don't even give a damn about the Heaven Wasteland Palace, let alone your Divine Alliance. You will regret this sooner or later. You will definitely not have a good ending after offending the Divine Union. He was infuriated. Not only did he get sealed, he even got his face stepped on. What do you mean by face stepped on? This was the real meaning of face stepped on. He directly rushed towards your face and didn't care about anything else. Can't you people be more creative? Can you change your lines? Yi Shiwen looked helpless. Then he looked at Qin Lai and said, Brother Qin, what exactly is the background of the Divine Union? Upon hearing Yi Shiwen's words, everyone felt like fainting. Previously, when they saw his impassioned expression, they had thought that he knew the background of the Divine Union and didn't care about it. In the end, it turned out that he didn't even know what the Divine Union was. Ignorant. He's too ignorant. He doesn't even know what the Divine Union is. The 13th prince and the others couldn't help but curse secretly. However, they didn't dare say it out loud. Otherwise, if this guy went crazy, no one in the entire palace would be able to stop him. As for relying on Qin Lai, that was even more unreliable. The two of them were clearly in cahoots. Only Qin Lai knew that Yi Shiwen wasn't from the mysterious world, so it was very normal that he didn't know about the Divine Union. He pondered for a moment, and then said through secret telepathy, the Divine Union is a religious organization that has risen in recent years. It was founded by a terrifying powerhouse. The only purpose of this organization is to make this leader a deity. The people of the Divine Union also firmly believe that the leader of this organization is a true deity. In the past few years, since its emergence, it has expanded extremely quickly. Its strength has also become very tyrannical. Although it can't compare to old forces like the Heaven Wasteland Palace, it's still quite strong. Yi Shiwen nodded after hearing this and said, So, this is a cult organization that practices personal worship. I understand now. Gu Yi directly vomited blood again. For a member of the Divine Union like him, the leader was a living deity. Developing and strengthening the Divine Union was their most fanatical pursuit. Now, Yi Shiwen had actually called it a cult organization. A cult organization. He couldn't help but become anxious and spit out a mouthful of blood. Bang! Yi Shiwen once again stepped on Gu Yi's face and said, Isn't it just a cult organization? What's there to be arrogant about? You scared me to death. I thought you were really an alliance of deities. I'm so scared. What should I do?" Although he said that he was afraid, there was not a trace of fear on his face. This made Gui feel like he was really going to vomit blood. "I'm going to kill you. I will definitely kill you." Gui roared with a red face. "Wait until you can break free first." Yi Shiwen sneered and said, "I don't care what your cult wants to do, but I advise you not to provoke me. If it weren't for giving face to Brother Qin, then you would have died if you dared to attack me. Brother Yi, although the Divine Union can't compare to old forces like the Heaven Wasteland Palace, it is still very strong. There are many experts in the Divine Union. I'm afraid that you will cause a lot of trouble by humiliating Gui like this. However, this matter is related to me, so I won't just stand by and watch." Qinlai looked at Yi Shiwen and said, "Kill me? What's there to be afraid of? Brother Qin, you don't have to worry about this matter. I've just arrived here and haven't done anything yet. If they dare to chase after me, then I'll kill them all one by one. In that case, no one will dare to casually attack me in the future," Yi Shiwen said in an indifferent manner. In his heart, however, he was thinking of something else. Sometimes being famous was the best way to report his safety. If his name spread, it would naturally save him a lot of trouble, and he wouldn't have to look for them one by one. Qinlai was a little speechless. Gui was clearly planning to kill the chicken to warn the monkey and use it to establish his might. However, it was probably unprecedented for someone to dare to use a member of the Divine Union to establish his might. Even though he knew how powerful the Divine Union was, he still dared to do this. He was either crazy or he had great confidence in methods. Naturally, he didn't believe that Yi Shiwen was a lunatic. In that case, Yi Shiwen definitely had other methods. He just didn't know what they were. It seemed like Yi Shiwen was getting more and more mysterious. The 13th prince was a little confused. Where exactly had Qinlai found this weirdo? This was a little too savage. Did he really not understand how frightening the Divine Union was? An existence that could contend with a martial ancestor was naturally very powerful. However, this fella actually didn't seem to care. He even dared to say that he would kill as many as he came. This was a little too damn savage. How powerful and arrogant. He doesn't even care about the members of the Divine Union. He actually wants to seal a mysterious life realm expert from the Divine Union for 3 months. Where did this person come from? Why haven't I heard of him before? Did you see that? It was only one move. Since Gui came to the prince's mansion, he has been arrogant and domineering. He doesn't even put us, the consecrated experts, in his eyes. But what's the use of that? In front of Yi Shiwen, he couldn't even withstand one move and was completely defeated. Yeah, he simply couldn't retaliate. Could Yi Shiwen have already entered the intermediate mysterious life realm? Otherwise, how could he be so powerful? I don't know. How can we see through the depths of a mysterious realm expert? This is great. Isn't Gui arrogant? Isn't he domineering? Doesn't he care about us? This is great. He's like a cripple after being sealed for 3 months. Let's see how he can raise his head in front of us in the future. At this moment, many consecrators in the monarch's palace couldn't help but burst into an uproar. Although they didn't dare intervene in the fight, it didn't mean that they weren't paying attention. A fight between 2 mysterious life realm experts should have been an excellent learning opportunity. Who would have thought that it would actually be a one-sided situation where they couldn't retaliate at all? While they were taken aback, they couldn't help but sigh. It was a pity that such a good opportunity had been wasted. In that case, I won't stay for long. Brother Qin, let's meet again next time. Yi Shiwen cupped his hands and swaggered out of the monarch's palace. Nobody in the huge monarch's palace dared to stop Yi Shiwen. At this moment, the 13th prince's face had already turned ashen. He had been slapped in the face. This was a slap in the face. Chapter 1813. After Yi Shiwen sealed Gui, he clapped his hands and left. However, this matter quickly became a hot topic in the eyes of many people. Although the 13th prince had the intention to manage the palace, he couldn't manage it like an iron bucket. That was simply impossible. Furthermore, the 13th prince was also a strong candidate for the throne, so he was the focus of many people's attention. Therefore, this news quickly became a hot topic in the eyes of many people. Very soon, everyone found out about the ancient meaning of the divine union. Someone had actually sealed his cultivation and was cursing him nonstop in the king's palace. Yi Shiwen had left, but the seal was still there, so there was no way for him to move. Once they tried to carry him away, they would be bounced back on the spot. And when they found Qin Lai had a helpless look on his face. He wasn't prepared to give them any face at all. This was simply a slap in the face. Not only was it a slap in the face of the divine union, but it was also a slap in the face of the 13th prince. After all, this had happened in his palace, and he simply couldn't be carried away. More and more people started to pay attention to this matter. The news that of the Divine Union had been sealed instantly blew up the entire capital of the Dark Nation. In the eyes of many people, this wasn't a trivial matter. As the undead soul abyss was about to open, the representatives of various major powers also dared to come. Although the Divine Union wasn't the strongest among them, it was undoubtedly one of them. In the past few years, the Divine Union's momentum had been extremely fast, and its tentacles had penetrated deep into the entire mysterious world, causing many old powers to be unhappy. Therefore, many people wanted to see the Divine Union make a fool of itself. This time, the Divine Union's prized disciple, Yi, was involved. No matter how one looked at it, it was a very amusing matter. As for Yi, he was simply unable to describe his feelings at this moment. His face had already turned completely red from anger. He could clearly sense that although no one had come, there were a few powerful consciousnesses sweeping over from within the Wang Mansion. Even the formation set up by the Wang Mansion was unable to block them. Furthermore, these were all profound life stage experts. In other words, his disgraceful appearance would quickly spread within the circle of profound life stage experts. When he thought of this, he gnashed his teeth so hard that they shattered. This was an unprecedented humiliation, and this sort of humiliation was even more unbearable than killing him. If it wasn't for the fact that he was sealed, he would even have the urge to commit suicide. No one could endure such humiliation. This was especially true for a powerful expert like him who had a certain status in the Xian world. Yi is finished this time. Let's see what the people from the Divine Union are going to do. A profound life stage expert has actually been humiliated like this. Will Yi still have the face to show himself in the future? What a joke. I've heard that he was captured in a single move. He's utterly humiliated. Even if he were to face a late profound life stage, or even a peak profound life stage expert, he wouldn't end up in such a sorry state. Would he still have the face to see others? If I were him, I would definitely find a hole to hide in. Indeed, if he returns like this, even the people from the Divine Union won't let him off easily. He has thrown the face of the Divine Union into the Xian world. I can't imagine what kind of future he will have in the future. This time, Yi Shiwen will probably become a shadow in his heart. I'm afraid he won't be able to get rid of it for the rest of his life. Even if he kills Yi Shiwen one day, it won't make a difference. This kind of humiliation has already been known by everyone. However, where did this Yi Shiwen come from? How can he be so outstanding? No matter how weak Yi is, he is still an early profound life stage expert. He was actually captured in a single move. How can he be so powerful? Why have I never heard of such a person? In any case, he is someone brought by Qin Lai. Naturally, he can't be weak. However, we still have to quickly send someone to investigate Yi Shiwen's background. It's very likely that he is from the outer domain. If he is an expert from the Xian world, how can we not have heard of him? Although these voices were communicating through divine sense, it seemed that Yi had accidentally heard them. Yi's face had already turned completely ashen. He simply had no face to see anyone. He had an urge to kill himself. Damn it, damn it, damn it. Wait for me to get out. I will definitely kill you, Yi Shiwen. He kept roaring, but his voice couldn't even reach the outside of the palace. His cultivation had been sealed. At this moment, he was at most like an ordinary person. At this moment, the 13th prince looked at Yi awkwardly. He didn't know what to do. He was also grumbling in his heart. He was too useless. He had actually been captured in a single move. Even with such weak strength, he had actually dared to incite him to oppose Qin Lai. At the thought of this, he couldn't help but feel exceptionally regretful. He shouldn't have listened to them at all. This was simply a trap. Looking at Qin Lai's attitude, it was obvious that what had happened just now had completely enraged Qin Lai. It was impossible to count on him to lend a hand at this time. Moreover, in his opinion, even if Qin Lai lent a hand, it was unlikely that he would be able to undo this restriction. Quickly send someone to the Divine Union's encampment and invite the elders of the Divine Union over. After thinking for a long time, the 13th prince sighed and instructed his attendant. Qin Lai wouldn't make a move at this time. Furthermore, there weren't any powerful people on his side who had reached such a level. Although there were some profound life stage experts, they were all independent cultivators. How could they be compared to the elites from the big sects? After thinking for a long time, he still thought of the Divine Union. After the attendant received the order, he immediately rushed to the Divine Union's encampment to invite them over without delay. However, before he could even step out of the palace, he felt a boundless aura descend from the sky. Then, 3 old men in luxurious robes descended from the sky and landed in the palace. At the same time, the 3 old men in luxurious robes couldn't help but sigh when they saw that Guyi's cultivation had been completely sealed. They were so depressed that they wanted to vomit blood. Their expressions turned ugly. Ever since the Divine Union had emerged, they had fought everywhere. They had even dared to compete with the strongest enemies. They had never been humiliated like this before. This was a ruthless slap in the Divine Union's face. In the past, the enemies of the Divine Union would never think of humiliating the Divine Union, even if they had to kill someone. After all, this was even more serious than killing someone. This was a provocation to the entire Divine Union's reputation. Damn it, Yi Shiwen actually dared to humiliate the people of the Divine Union. He really deserves to die. The leader of the group, an old man with a pale face and no beard, was so angry that his entire body was trembling. A powerful aura burst forth from his body in an instant. This was a terrifying expert who had crawled out of a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. The reason they had been able to rush over so quickly was thanks to the speed at which news had spread. They had received the news as soon as it had. It was said that the people of the Divine Union had been bullied. The 3 elders were seething with anger. The Divine Union had always been the ones bullying others. Since when had anyone dared to bully the Divine Union? They must be tired of living. This time they had come specifically to support Guyi. Although they wouldn't be heading to the undead abyss personally due to their age, they could still support Guyi and provide support from the periphery when the time came. In many people's opinion, the undead abyss had already become a delicious piece of cake. As long as they had some means, they wouldn't be willing to let it go. Who would have thought that something like this would actually happen? They hadn't even gotten to support Guyi and establish the Divine Union's banner in the Nation of Darkness. Yet they had already been trampled on in this manner. By the time they arrived at Yi Shiwen's doorstep, Yi Shiwen had already left and was nowhere to be seen. The situation at the scene was even worse than the worst situation they had imagined. This time, Guyi was really beaten up like a dead dog, and it was said that Yi Shiwen had actually defeated him in one move. This time, the Divine Union had really lost face. They had been trampled on so many times that they couldn't even pick it up. His aura directly swept out, and the 13th prince was directly hit by it. His face turned pale, his lips turned purple, and he continuously trembled. When the terrifying aura of a profound life stage expert swept out, it was likely that not many people would be able to withstand it. Qin Lai, who was standing to one side, also released his own aura without showing any weakness. A golden light overflowed in all directions, and the aura of a battlefield swept out. Although his skills couldn't compare to the old man's, he was a mysterious life realm expert, so he naturally wouldn't be as powerless as the 13th prince. When the old man saw that Yi Shiwen had already disappeared, he couldn't find a target to vent his anger on. Thus, he couldn't help but withdraw his aura gloomily. The 13th prince was barely able to catch his breath. A mysterious life realm expert. This was the true power of a mysterious life realm expert. Deep down, his desire to reach the mysterious life realm increased. If he was a true mysterious life realm expert, would these people still dare to disregard him like this? He was so angry that his lips were trembling. He had been ruthlessly slapped in the face by a few people. The Divine Union cared about its reputation, but did the 13th Prince not care about it? If word of this got out, would the 13th Prince still have any face left? If he was forced to this extent, his heroic image in the Nation of Darkness would be destroyed in a day. All of this had been done by that damned Yi Shiwen. Chapter 1814. At this moment, the white-faced, beardless old man directly looked in Qin Lai's direction. His eyes were cold and merciless, as if he wanted to tear Qin Lai in half. He had also learned from the rumors that Qin Lai was the one who had brought this damned Yi Shiwen to the Divine Union. He even had reason to suspect that the martial sect had planned this. The martial sect knew that the Divine Union had interfered with the 13th Prince's affairs, so they had decided to do the exact opposite and slap the Divine Union in the face so that the 13th Prince would change his mind. Qin Lai, could it be that this was done by your martial sect? The white-faced, beardless elder gritted his teeth as he looked at Qin Lai. What does this have to do with the martial sect? He is not a member of the martial sect. I can't control what he wants to do. Besides, Gu Yi is really asking for a beating. If I were him, I would definitely teach him a lesson. What do you mean by overstepping your boundaries? Qin Lai sneered. His aura was like a rainbow, and he didn't give in at all. He didn't have the slightest intention of backing down. The old man's face turned even uglier. Qin Lai was clearly using this matter to mock the Divine Union for overstepping their boundaries. He also knew that this wasn't right. After all, there were so many princes and princesses in the Nation of Darkness. Couldn't they just randomly pick one to support? Why did they have to target the 13th Prince along with Chairman Wu? This kind of action would be criticized in the back. Furthermore, joining halfway wasn't as good as nurturing someone from the beginning. However, the opening of the undead abyss was imminent, so they had no other choice. It wouldn't be easy to choose a suitable prince in such a short period of time. This was why they wanted to compete with the martial sect. No matter what, as the saying goes, even a strong dragon cannot suppress a snake in its territory. It seemed like martial arts grandmasters were easier to bully. This matter was instigated by the people of the martial sect. You have to give the Divine Union an explanation. Let him go first. The old man said, What do you mean we started it? You can ask anyone if it was us or that idiot Gu Yi who started it first. He thinks he's invincible. What can we do? Qin Lai said with a sneer. What? Besides, so what if we were the ones who attacked first? We haven't even asked for an explanation from you yet. You actually want an explanation from us? You? The old man choked. His face turned red. He wanted nothing more than to kill Qin Lai, but he did not dare to do so. Behind Qin Lai stood a huge figure, a martial ancestor. Although a powerful dragon could not suppress a local snake, it would still be easy to deal with him. I've said it before, he's my friend, but I can't interfere in his affairs. If you have the ability, you can try to undo this seal. Qin Lai looked at the old man and said indifferently. He knew that the old man would definitely not dare to act recklessly. Humph, do you think I can't do anything to you? The fair-skinned, beardless old man directly took a deep breath. For a moment, wind and clouds rose in all directions, and the surrounding spiritual energy was completely confused. He's going to make a move. This is another almighty expert of the Divine Union. It is said that he usually fights for the Divine Union. This time, he specially came over to support Gu Yi. Who would have thought that something like this would actually happen? This is interesting. The people of the Divine Union are going to clash with the people of the martial ancestor. I don't believe that Yi Shiwen wasn't arranged by the martial ancestor. This slap in the face is really interesting. Ah, exactly. The people of the Divine Union thought that the martial ancestor was a pushover. They must have hit an iron plate this time. However, the most they can do is slightly humiliate the people of the Divine Union. The seal will be undone very soon. These people are all powerful experts of the Divine Union. Their prestige has already shaken the mysterious world. All of you, get lost. Whoever dares to spy on the people of the Divine Union will be killed without mercy. The fair-skinned, beardless old man's gaze was as sharp as an eagle's as he surveyed the surroundings. Then, he shouted loudly, and the spirit consciousness that had probed in was instantly shattered, leaving nothing behind. In an instant, many experts in the entire capital who had been paying attention to this matter suffered a little. They hadn't expected that this fair-skinned, beardless old man would act without any reason or warning them. Damn it! The people of the Divine Union are too tyrannical. They actually attacked without asking for the reason. Damn it! Aren't they just relying on the fact that their leader is about to reach Tao validation? What's so great about being so arrogant? Isn't it enough that he's about to reach Tao validation? He hasn't even reached Tao validation yet. By the time he does, he will be the leader of a group of heroes. Even the Wasteland Palace and the like will be overshadowed by him. Although their foundations aren't that deep, as long as they have a God-level expert who has reached Tao validation, their foundations will be a joke. Gods exist forever, so a foundation that has been built up over time doesn't matter to them at all. They have all the time they have. The tyrannical behavior of this Divine Union expert made many people curse him. Every single one of them was a tyrannical expert, so how could they be frightened by him? Although they didn't dare watch unscrupulously, they still stood around and watched. They didn't leave right away. The old man also knew when to stop and didn't chase them away again. Otherwise, the Divine Union wouldn't just have offended the martial ancestor. They would have offended all the other powers. Although they had been expanding very quickly in recent years and had already offended all the other powers, that was the bigger picture. There was still a possibility of cooperation when it came to small matters. Borrowing their strength to contend against an enraged martial ancestor was an excellent method. Humph! I want to see what kind of seal it is that actually dares to be so arrogant. He didn't even look at it. Instead, he grabbed the seal on Gu Yi's body. Given his skills, he naturally didn't need to care. Bang! Just as his big hand was about to grab the seal on Gu Yi's body, the entire seal suddenly flickered with a golden light that filled the sky. This golden light directly condensed into a huge transparent boundary with the word seal in the sky, simply preventing anyone from approaching it. When the big hand directly grabbed the transparent barrier, the seal character instantly burst out with a powerful light, and then the big hand was shaken away. Thump, thump, thump. The pale, beardless old man took a few steps back and looked at the scene in front of him in astonishment. Although he hadn't used all his strength, how could this be? He couldn't even break the seal. How is this possible? He actually can't even break the seal. He is an expert at the peak of the profound life realm. A casual attack from him has the power of an early-stage, profound life realm expert. How terrifying! How can this seal be so tyrannical? However, this is also good. It will be good for the people of the Divine Union to suffer a little. Who asked them to be so arrogant and despotic all these years? Now they have kicked an iron plate. It's not over yet. He didn't use all his strength just now. He was just testing it casually. Although he hasn't broken the seal, it doesn't mean that he doesn't have the ability to do so. Let's just wait and see. Many people immediately burst into a commotion and began to discuss spiritedly. However, these voices were not concealed at all and directly fell into the ears of the fair-faced old man. Immediately, his complexion changed between green and white from anger. He did not use his full strength just now, but the result was like this. He had become the topic of ridicule and blackmail for these people. Let me give it a try. At the moment, behind the pale, beardless old man was an old man that looked like an ape man. His entire body was covered in long hair, and only his eyes were extremely bright. This was also a peculiar tribe that was completely different from the human tribe. The ape man took a step forward. His sturdy body was like a terrifying small mountain as a boundless aura swept out. Then he slapped down with his palm. Boom! The sky collapsed, and the earth caved in as a frightening palm slammed against the boundary. When the palm slammed against the seal, the word seal instantly flew out of the entire seal. A tyrannical aura swept out from the incomparably huge, ancient word and sealed all the power in the world. All the power and everything was about to be sealed by this ancient word. Bang! The ape-man was caught off guard and was sent flying on the spot, spitting out a mouthful of fresh blood. His strength was far from being as tyrannical as the pale, beardless old man. He was merely a profound life realm intermediate stage warrior. The strength of both parties was simply not on the same level. Everyone was shocked. Even those people who were spectating the fight were instantly shocked. That was an expert at the middle profound life stage. Even if his strength was far inferior to the pale, beardless old man, he could still be considered as a genuine expert when compared to the others. Yet he was actually sent flying in a single strike. How is this possible? An expert at the profound life realm intermediate stage couldn't even do anything to the seal he left behind. No wonder he suffered a loss at his hands. He didn't just suffer a loss. He simply hit an iron plate. No wonder he was captured in one move. If Yi Shiwen was here, I'm afraid that even this expert at the profound life realm intermediate stage wouldn't be able to stop Yi Shiwen. If it was him, I reckon that he wouldn't be much stronger than Gu Yi. What kind of seal is this? I've studied seals for thousands of years. What kind of seal have I not seen? Why have I never seen this before? This is a pseudo-Dao rune. This is a pseudo-Dao rune. Someone immediately recognized it and shouted. Chapter 1815. This is a pseudo-Dao rune. This is a pseudo-Dao rune. Someone exclaimed after recognizing it. The word seal was quickly recognized. It turned out to be a pseudo-Dao rune, which immediately caused a commotion. What was a pseudo-Dao rune? It was a character that only powerhouses who were infinitely close to the Dao validation realm had the opportunity to condense. This character contained the path of this powerhouse, so it could be said to be extremely precious. Even top powerhouses like them rarely had the opportunity to see a pseudo-Dao rune, let alone possess one. Many people started to get restless. This was a pseudo-Dao rune. This was a pseudo-Dao rune. Many people's spirit consciousness immediately descended upon it. These people weren't the only ones who wanted to make a move on the pseudo-Dao rune. At the moment, even the fair-skinned old man was very tempted. If he could obtain a pseudo-Dao rune, then it wouldn't matter if he lost face today. It wouldn't matter at all. No wonder a mid-stage profound life realm expert was sent flying. It's actually a pseudo-Dao rune. Where did Yi Shiwen come from? He even has a pseudo-Dao rune. Where did he come from? That's right. Although this mid-stage profound life realm expert is very tyrannical, Yi Shiwen's strength isn't bad either. Furthermore, he's controlling a pseudo-Dao rune. It's normal that he couldn't block it. Ever since they had found out that the word seal was a pseudo-Dao rune, everyone had come to a sudden realization. It wasn't strange that the people of the Divine Union couldn't do anything about this seal. Damn it, he had actually used a pseudo-Dao rune as a seal. Which wastrel would do such an extravagant thing? At this time, although many people hadn't seen Yi Shiwen yet, they suddenly became interested in this guy. A guy who could casually use a pseudo-Dao rune seal naturally wouldn't be an ordinary person. Or could it be that he was simply a descendant of some great force? Although many people had ambitions for the word seal, they hadn't made a move yet. They were all waiting to see how the people of the Divine Union would react. They couldn't help but feel extremely carefree when they saw the people of the Divine Union suffer a setback. The ape-man elder looked at the seal in astonishment. His eyes flashed with greed. He also coveted the seal. To be precise, he coveted the word seal. Although he couldn't touch it, he believed that their leader, the white-faced elder, should be able to do it. However, the old man's expression turned serious. This seal is strange. It's not the type of seal I've seen before. It seems to be the type of ancient inheritance from a long, long time ago. The myriad worlds have been passed down for countless years. After a long period of time, the type of cultivation would be very different. It was just like how the wild beasts that dominated the world in the past were completely different from the current cultivation system. Ordinary people might not be able to distinguish them, but in the profound world, profound realm experts from various worlds would come here, broadening their horizons. Although they might not be able to recognize them, they more or less knew something about them. He had originally wanted to use a technique to open it, who knew that it would actually be an inheritance and sealing technique from ancient times. This made him dumbfounded. His words left the two elders dumbfounded. Although the white-faced, beardless elder was talking about the type of seal, in a sense, he was also admitting that he couldn't break the seal with brute force. It can't be. Even you can't break it? You're already at the peak of the profound life realm. Don't tell me you still need to ask a profound death realm expert to help you? The ape-man elder couldn't help but widen his eyes. I'll give it a try. The white-faced, beardless elder gathered his chi and his dantian. He had a solemn expression on his face as his hands emitted an endless divine radiance that immediately tore the entire sky apart. This huge crack blasted towards the seal on Gu Yi's body, as if it was about to tear the entire seal in half. To everyone's surprise, the word seal seemed to have been stimulated by a huge force. It transformed into an expert on the spot and crushed the crack into pieces. Not only did the entire void crack, but it was also crushed into pieces. Chaos poured out of the endless energy. It looked terrifying. The prince's face turned deathly pale as he watched. He had seen such a scene before, and he could also create it. However, to be able to create such a frightening scene in the imperial capital, both the white-faced, beardless elder and the seal were really tyrannical and frightening. After all, there were countless array formations in the imperial capital that specialized in strengthening space. Ordinary people, even early-stage profound life realm experts, would find it very difficult to create such frightening destructive power. At the moment, he felt a little regretful. He regretted listening to Gu Yi's instigation and specifically dealing with Qin Lai. Why had he agreed in a moment of hot-headedness? What good would humiliating Qin Lai do for him? The only benefit would be the divine union. When the time came, he would have to rely on the divine union alone. After resolving this attack, the powerhouse formed by the word seal glanced coldly at the pale-faced, beardless old man and immediately turned into a vast torrent that blasted towards the pale-faced, beardless old man. Boom! When this frightening power blasted the elder's body, it was automatically crushed into powder by the energy barrier that had formed around his body. It simply couldn't hurt the elder at all. However, the old man did not continue to attack. He had finally discovered an extremely obvious fact. Although the seal was unable to do anything to him, he, a dignified expert at the peak of the profound life stage, was actually unable to do anything to a seal. This was simply an extraordinary humiliation. He still didn't continue to attack. Otherwise, his face would be trampled on even more. Damn it! Send someone to investigate and find out who exactly Yi Shiwen is. He actually dares to oppose the divine union. I want him to die without a burial place. The elder said through gritted teeth. He finally understood that this wasn't an ordinary seal. It had simply been left behind by Yi Shiwen to embarrass the divine union's people. A slap in the face. This was a blatant slap in the face. Furthermore, it wasn't enough to slap Gu Yi's face. He had also slapped them in the face. This was already a provocation. How could they pretend not to see it? Save me, elder! Gu Yi couldn't help but feel a little hopeless when he saw that even the elder couldn't do anything. 3 months. Was he really going to be sealed for 3 months? When he thought of this, his entire being became like a deflated balloon, completely deflated. Originally, he was able to be so unyielding, as he believed that the few elders who had come together to support him would be able to save him. However, who would have imagined that even the strongest amongst them, a peak profound life stage expert, was actually unable to break the seal? He was basically on the verge of despair. He would never forget this humiliation for the rest of his life. He had already regretted it. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have casually attacked this fiendish fellow. He had thought that this fellow would be a pushover. Who would have imagined that he would actually be an iron plate that would break his leg? However, this regret had turned into resentment. Just you wait. One day, I'll tear you to shreds. Trash, you actually got trapped here. You've really disgraced the divine union. The fair, beardless elder glared at Gu Yi as he spoke. These words made Gu Yi's face turn red. No matter how many reasons he had, it was an indisputable fact that he had been trapped here. Do I really have to be sealed for 3 months? I don't want to. Humph. I'll go and capture that fellow. Although his seal is formidable, his strength isn't that great. Let's see if he still has any backbone when I capture him and bring him to you." The fair, beardless elder snorted coldly. Then, he suddenly took a step forward and disappeared along with the two elders behind him. Evidently, they had gone to search for Yishuin. Gui had no other choice but to place his hopes on this. The powerhouses who had originally been very interested in the word seal had also given up on the idea of immediately fighting over it. Even the fair, beardless elder couldn't do anything about this word. Even if they went, they wouldn't be able to get anything out of it. "Mr. Chin, I was in the wrong this time. I wonder if you can ask your friend to release Mr. Gu?" At this moment, the 13th prince couldn't help but smile bitterly as he cupped his hands towards Chin Lai. Originally, he thought that he was a top figure. However, when these profound life realm experts took action, he finally understood that compared to these people, his only value was his identity as the prince of the Dark Nation. Chin Lai sneered. "Now that you know how to regret it, why didn't you do it earlier?" "I'm sorry, but there's no other way. Although he is my friend, we have an equal relationship. I can't order him around," Chin Lai said as he spread his hands. The 13th prince couldn't help but smile bitterly. This person had actually made Chin Lai say that they had an equal relationship. Clearly, this person's background wasn't simple. However, he had offended Yi Shiwen to such an extent. One could imagine how much of a blunder he had made. At this point, face wasn't important anymore. He only hoped that he hadn't offended Yi Shiwen too much. "However, you don't have to worry. He said 3 months, so it'll be 3 months. Anyway, the matter of the undead abyss will take more than 3 months. It shouldn't delay anything," Chin Lai explained. "Sigh, that's all I can do." The seal that Yi Shiwen had left behind had caused a huge commotion among the people. Yi Shiwen, who had just left the prince's mansion, was stopped by a woman dressed in palace attire. "Mr. Yi, please wait. Our princess has invited you." Chapter 1816. "Mr. Yi, please stay for a moment. Our princess is waiting for you." The woman lowered her head and said to Yi Shiwen, "Princess?" Yi Shiwen frowned slightly. He didn't remember knowing the princess of the country of darkness. He couldn't help but be vigilant. He had just humiliated the 13th prince, and now this princess was looking for him. He couldn't help but feel a little nervous. "Sorry, I don't seem to know your princess," Yi Shiwen said after pondering for a moment. The current country of darkness could be described as a gathering of experts. Many mysterious realm experts, who were rarely seen, had gathered in the capital of the country of darkness because of the undead abyss. Perhaps there would be mysterious death realm experts. No matter how confident Yi Shiwen was, he wouldn't be so ignorant. Therefore, after dealing with Gu Yi, he immediately left. How could he wait for the other people of the Divine Union to come? Mysterious realm experts were very rare, even in the mysterious world. Many mysterious realm experts might hide in one place for thousands or even tens of thousands of years. From the moment they entered the mysterious world to the moment they silently passed away, no one would know. This was the life of most mysterious realm experts. For them, if they couldn't achieve immortality, then everything would be fleeting. After thousands or tens of thousands of years, no matter how tyrannical they would only become a cup of soil. There was no difference. Although Mr. Yi doesn't know our princess, it doesn't matter, the palace maid said with a shallow smile. "Mr. Yi, don't worry. Our princess has no ill intentions." "Then who is your princess? At least let me know who she is," Yi Shiwen asked. "Our princess is Princess Tianqing," the palace maid said with a shallow smile. Princess Tianqing. Yi Shiwen was slightly startled. However, he quickly reacted. Along the way, Chin Lai had also told him about the general situation of the Dark Nation. In addition to many princes competing for hegemony, there were also some princesses who were heroines among women. They were not inferior to those princes. Although the country of darkness hadn't had an empress, it wasn't impossible. Among these princesses, Princess Tianqing was undoubtedly the most special one. Among the many, she was also the first to have a title, Princess Tianqing. It was said that on the day she was born, the country of darkness had a rare sunny day. This made the country of darkness's ruler very happy, so she was given a title at birth. Don't think that this title seemed a bit ridiculous, but in fact, it was rare for the people of the country of darkness to see a few sunny days in a year. Many people might not even see a sunny day for decades or even centuries. Due to its proximity to the undead abyss, the sky above the dark nation was always shrouded in death chi, forming dense dark clouds that covered everything. That was why there was a rare sunny day. Therefore, the title of Princess Tianqing had a special meaning to the people of the country of darkness. Amongst the many princesses, Princess Tianqing had been famous for her intelligence since she was young. Many people said that she had great talent and bold vision. If it wasn't for her being a woman, she might have been able to form a faction within the imperial court and compete with the many princes. However, a woman was still a woman. Compared to those talented and bold princes, her natural inferiority was already very obvious. I don't know your family's Princess Tianqing. Why are you looking for me at this time? Yi Shiwen asked. Not only did he not know Princess Tianqing, but he had also heard of her name on the road. It doesn't matter. Although Mr. Yi doesn't know our family's princess, this shouldn't be a problem. Our family's princess doesn't have any evil intentions. Moreover, she and the 13th prince aren't on the same side. So Mr. Yi can rest assured. The palace maid seemed to know what Yi Shiwen was worried about, and said, Could it be that Mr. Yi is afraid of us women? What a good provocation. Yi Shiwen clapped his hands and laughed. If she hadn't said this, then Yi Shiwen might not have paid attention to her at all. However, since she said this, Yi Shiwen became a bit interested. However, since you have already said this, wouldn't I be too timid if I don't go? Lead the way. Mr. Yi, please follow this servant. This palace maid leisurely walked forward with Yi Shiwen. She directly separated the flow of people, like a swimming fish, and directly shuttled through, unexpectedly not bumping into anyone. At this time, Yi Shiwen discovered that this unassuming palace maid was actually a heaven realm expert. The corner of his mouth couldn't help but twitch. This was a bit interesting. Although he didn't want to take the risk if it was just self-defense, he still had some confidence. He immediately followed behind the palace maid without missing a single step. Both of them were experts. Although they were walking, their speed was still extremely fast. In just a quarter of an hour, they had already crossed a small part of the imperial city and arrived at another mansion. This mansion wasn't any smaller than the 13th prince's mansion. It was even more dazzling, with richly ornamented beams and painted rafters. If the 13th prince wanted to be low-key and show off to attract the hearts of the world's heroes, then Princess Tianqing didn't need to. The palace maid led the way, and Yi Shiwen smoothly entered the Princess Tianqing's mansion. There were no obstacles along the way, and they directly entered the main hall. As soon as he entered the main hall, Yi Shiwen saw a beautiful figure standing in the middle of the hall. He saw that she was wearing a black chiffon dress and a golden jade belt, outlining her alluring figure. Her skin was as white as snow, and under the contrast of the surrounding jewelry, it looked even whiter. Her eyes were as bright as the stars, her nose was high, and the corner of her mouth was slightly raised. There was a hint of a smile on her face, as if the entire room was lit up by her smile. Mr. Yi, this is our princess. Your Highness, Mr. Yi has been brought here. This servant will take her leave first. The palace maid finished speaking and directly left. Yi Shiwen glanced at Princess Tianqing. Even though he had seen countless beauties in his life, he had to admit that Princess Tianqing was indeed stunning. Among the girls he had seen in his life, she was definitely one of the best. However, he only glanced at her, and that was it. With his current state of mind, even a fairy from the heavens wouldn't be able to shake his state of mind. Although he wouldn't regard her as a smelly skin bag or a beautiful skeleton, it wouldn't have much of an impact on him. However, he couldn't help but frown because he could clearly feel a bit of devil chi from Princess Tianqing's body. Yes, he couldn't be wrong. It was indeed devil chi. He was very sensitive to this kind of aura. Yi Shiwen, this woman has the bloodline of Azura. You must be careful. Yi Mo reminded him at this time. So it's the bloodline of Azura. No wonder she is so stunning. At this time, Yi Shiwen thought of Man Yun, whom he had met once before. He had to admit that female Azura were indeed stunning beauties. It seemed as if the heavens had created the Azura clan and given the most beautiful parts to female Azura. Male Azuras were ugly beyond compare, while female Azuras were breathtakingly beautiful. Although Yi Shiwen was somewhat vigilant in his heart, he didn't show it on his face. While Yi Shiwen was sizing up Princess Tianqing, Princess Tianqing also had a somewhat curious look on her face. She swept a glance at Yi Shiwen and felt a slight admiration in her heart. She was born with the bloodline of Azura and was born with an innate charm. Even if the experts of mysterious realms saw her, it would be rare for them to remain so calm. Moreover, she could see that Yi Shiwen wasn't pretending to be serious, but was really very calm. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but smile faintly. This time, I took the liberty to invite Mr. Yi here. Presumably, Mr. Yi is also very puzzled. Princess Tianqing smiled faintly and said. There was a somewhat charming look in her smile. Yi Shiwen didn't move and acted as if he didn't see anything. With the enlightening mind ancient tree suppressing his mind, no kind of charm could shake his mind. However, he was also a bit curious. Although he had seen Man Yun before, she didn't have an innate charm like Princess Tianqing. Instead, she was full of heroic spirit and wasn't any worse than an ordinary man. She wasn't as gentle as Princess Tianqing. Yes, indeed. I have never met the princess before, so I don't know why you're here. Could it be that you're here to help the 13th prince? Yi Shiwen asked. Of course not. Since Mr. Yi has followed Qinlai here, you must know some things about the Dark Nation. It's impossible for me and the 13th prince to be together. Moreover, Mr. Yi has provoked the people of the Divine Union. As long as you're in the capital, I'm afraid you won't be able to escape their detection. If you're in my princess residence, no one will know. Princess Tianqing said indifferently. She didn't seem to care that her charm had failed. Oh, so you're saying that the princess has taken special care of me? I don't have much of a relationship with the princess, so I don't know why you're doing this. Yi Shiwen was somewhat puzzled. Why did Princess Tianqing want to help him? There was no hatred without reason, but there was also no love without reason either. I don't know if Mr. Yi still remembers Man Yun. Princess Tianqing glanced at Yi Shiwen flirtatiously and said, Do you know her? Yi Shiwen's heart shook as he asked. Of course. Actually, didn't Mr. Yi already see it? I have the bloodline of the demon race in me. Moreover, I belong to the Azura tribe of the demon race. To be honest, Man Yun is actually my cousin, Princess Tianqing said with a smile. What? Yi Shiwen was shocked. This news was even more shocking than the fact that Princess Tianqing had the bloodline of the demon race. Princess Tianqing was actually Man Yun's cousin. Chapter 1817. They all had the bloodline of the Azura clan. If that was the case, it was not wrong. However, it was unexpected that it was such a coincidence. I didn't expect your highness to be Man Yun's cousin. Yi Shiwen had a strange expression on his face. If it was someone else, he would naturally ignore them, let alone the devil race. However, Man Yun was different. He naturally couldn't act like he did before. Oh, my cousin's reputation is great. Mr. Yi was so guarded before, but now it's much better. We could talk openly. Princess Tianqing said with a smile. Talk. What is there to talk about between us? Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes and said lightly. Although he couldn't act like it was none of his business because of Man Yun, it didn't mean that he wanted to cooperate with the devil race. I know that Mr. Yi must have come because of the undead abyss. As far as I know, you have already fallen out with the 13th brother. The people of the martial sect will not fall out with the 13th brother for you. So if Mr. Yi wants to enter the undead abyss, I'm afraid it won't be that easy. Princess Tianqing said with a smile. Even without you, I can go in by myself. Yi Shiwen said. I'm afraid Mr. Yi doesn't understand the undead tide. In the undead tide, endless undead creatures will rush in. Whether it's in the sky or on the ground, everything is under their control. Although Mr. Yi is powerful, I think it's difficult for two fists to fight against four hands. I'm afraid you won't be able to deal with so many undead creatures. However, there are a few weak points. The entrances to the undead abyss are all controlled by our country of darkness. Otherwise, why do you think those arrogant behemoths would care about our small country of darkness? If it's for the undead abyss, they can just take it themselves. They don't need us at all. Princess Tianqing said, "The reason why our country of darkness is able to control these entrances is because of the mutual compromise between the major forces. This way, the entrance is wide open, and the benefits are shared, which is much better than being occupied by any one force. Apart from these major forces, it is simply as difficult as ascending to the heavens for others to enter. Therefore, if those rogue cultivators want to enter the undead abyss, they can only rely on our country of darkness. Therefore, in our country, even those useless princes have one or two profound realm experts by their side. Why? Isn't it because of the Dead Soul Abyss? A shortcut to the profound death stage. I believe that no one would be able to resist such a temptation," Princess Tianqing said with a smile. "At those entrances, there will be a large number of top-notch experts from various major forces. So, if Mr. Yi thinks that you can just barge in, you're gravely mistaken." Yi Xuan immediately sank into contemplation. Although there were many different kinds of heavenly treasures in the Dead Soul Abyss, ordinary people didn't dare to enter because there were too many dead spirit creatures inside. Even the experts of Mysterious Realm wouldn't be able to return if they entered. Only by taking advantage of this undead spirit tide, when countless undead spirit creatures crawled out of the undead spirit abyss to wreak havoc, could they seize the opportunity to enter and seize these heavenly treasures. In other words, this was their only chance to enter the undead abyss. If they wanted to enter the undead abyss, they could only cooperate with the country of darkness. No wonder these princes and princesses were so arrogant. For example, the 13th prince clearly knew that a martial great master was tyrannical, but he still wanted to teach Qin Lai a lesson. "Your Highness, do you mean that you want me to cooperate with you?" Yi Xuan asked. "That's right. I know that Mr. Yi is very powerful. However, Mr. Yi has thoroughly angered the people of the Divine Union. Even the other royal brothers and sisters wouldn't risk offending the Divine Union just to shelter Mr. Yi." Princess Tianqing said, "As long as Mr. Yi cooperates with me, it will be like a perfect match for both of us. What do you think? Could it be that your Highness is also interested in competing for the throne?" Yi Xuan suddenly realized that it wasn't as simple as he had thought. The opening of the undead spirit abyss had attracted so many people not only because of the heavenly treasures in the undead spirit abyss, but more importantly, because it would determine the ownership of the throne of the country of darkness in the future. The major forces had spent so much time and effort to support these princes and princesses. Wasn't it for the sake of monopolizing the various benefits of the country of darkness after these princes and princesses ascended the throne in the future? When that time came, they would be far ahead of the others and their strength would be further enhanced. Therefore, it was natural for them to rush directly to the ancestral weapon that had fallen in the undead spirit abyss. Fundamentally, it was still for the throne. Princess Tianqing's eagerness to go there meant that her motive was not simple either. However, Yi Xuan didn't expect that Princess Tianqing didn't have the slightest intention of concealing it. She directly said, "There is nothing strange about this. No one has ever said that a princess can ascend the throne. Although there is no precedent in the country of darkness, I know that princesses can also ascend the throne in many countries, right? Since those wastes can compete for the throne, why can't I?" Princess Tianqing retracted her charm and actually had a bit more of a heroic spirit. Vaguely, it was as if she could see Man Yun's shadow. There was a bit of disdain in the corner of her mouth for her good-for-nothing brothers. The king of the country of darkness had hundreds and thousands of children. Some of them were very outstanding. Naturally, there were also ordinary playboys who only knew how to eat, drink, and have fun. However, for many people, even these playboys who only knew how to eat, drink, and have fun were more qualified to inherit the throne than princesses like them. Yi Xuan saw that Princess Tianqing's ambition wasn't inferior to the ambition of ordinary men. However, it was only for a split second. Immediately after, she returned to her charming self. For Mr. Yi, this should also be a matter of mutual benefit and mutual harm, Princess Tianqing said with a smile. That's right. However, I don't have much interest in the contest for the throne of the country of darkness. I followed Qin Lai because I wanted to hitch a ride. They have the support of major forces. If I am alone, it will be difficult for me to fight against them. Yi Shiwen shook his head and said. He was very clear about this point. From the looks of it, this matter was indeed a matter of mutual benefit and mutual harm. However, if he were to interfere in the fight for the throne, the situation would be completely different. At that time, there might be a large number of experts attacking together. Even with his strength, it was likely that he would not be able to kill his way out of the encirclement. Naturally, Mr. Yi doesn't need to worry about this. I have my own way. Princess Tianqing faintly said, Anyway, for Mr. Yi, aren't you lacking an opportunity to enter? As for the future matters, it would naturally be best if Yi Shiwen can help. If not, I won't blame Mr. Yi. Yi Shiwen's brows wrinkled even deeper. This matter sounded like he was the one who had taken advantage of everything. He only had the power and no obligation. However, he didn't believe that Princess Tianqing was a kind person. Even if he knew Man Yun, it was impossible for him to use Princess Tianqing as a reason. How could there be such a good thing in the world? He naturally didn't believe that there would be a free lunch falling from the sky. However, no matter how he couldn't figure it out, this matter was also beneficial to him. Yi Shiwen agreed to it. At this time, Yi Mo's voice resounded in Yi Shiwen's mind. Although she is still concealing something, I can feel that she shouldn't have any malicious intentions towards you. Although there are certainly other things that she hasn't told you. As long as you adapt to the situation, I'm afraid that she can't do anything to you even if she wants to do something. Yi Shiwen thought for a moment. Yi Mo's words were indeed reasonable. It didn't matter what kind of trick she was going to play. Everything would be fine as long as he was careful. Moreover, the most important thing was to cooperate with her and enter the undead abyss. Although he didn't know how terrifying the undead tide was, he could see that the martial sect, the desolate heaven palace, and the divine union had no choice but to cooperate with the dark nation. He was afraid that they had no way to break into the undead abyss, which was why they chose this method. They couldn't do it. Yi Shiwen wasn't confident that he was much more powerful than them. At this time, it wasn't that easy to find a prince or a princess. Moreover, he was alone. How could he attract the consent of those princes and princesses? Perhaps only Princess Tianqing would give him such an opportunity. Thinking of this, he no longer hesitated and said, All right then. In that case, we can form an alliance. As for the situation on your side, if I can help, I will naturally help. If that's the case, I'm already very grateful. Princess Tianqing nodded slightly and said, In that case, it's settled. The undead tide will last for another 3 months. Mr. Yi can stay in my residence first. Right now, the people of the Divine Union must be looking for Mr. Ye's whereabouts everywhere. If Mr. Yi is seen by them, even if Mr. Yi isn't afraid, it will still be very stressful for me. Please understand. I understand. I'll have to trouble your highness for this period of time. Yi Shiwen said, It's good that Mr. Yi understands. During this period of time, I hope that Mr. Yi can condescend to stay in my residence first. Everything will be discussed after 3 months. Chapter 1818. Although Princess Tianqing's residence was called a residence, it actually occupied a vast area, like a small town. It was also like a town divided into many different areas. Yi Shiwen, who had already settled down, was arranged to stay in one of the courtyards of the residence by Princess Tianqing. The people who lived in this courtyard were all people who had been recruited by Princess Tianqing. In the princess residence, this was also the area for VIPs. It was not a place where ordinary people could have the opportunity to stay. Although it couldn't be compared to the consecrated by many popular princes, to be able to become a consecrated by Princess Tianqing, who was deeply loved by the king, was something that many people wished for. To the servants of the residence, any consecrated who could stay in the residence were not ordinary people. To them, they were like celestial beings. Hence, Yi Shiwen's stay was undoubtedly a huge matter to them. Princess Tianqing didn't often recruit consecrated people, so there were very few who could be recruited by her. Most of them were elites, with the weakest being peak celestial realm experts. To the consecrated people, one more person meant that there would be more competition for them, which wasn't a good thing. Especially after Yi Shiwen moved in, Princess Tianqing, who rarely came to this area, suddenly came more frequently. She would come almost every 2 to 3 days, and she was quite attentive. This made Princess Tianqing, who was rarely seen by consecrated people, suddenly become very common, which made them feel quite uncomfortable. After all, they weren't the disciples of the Divine Union, Martial Sect, or Desolate Heaven Temple. Even the princes and princesses of the Country of Darkness had to lower their status to the disciples of those monstrous organizations. They were just some rogue cultivators, so they didn't have the qualifications to put on airs with these princes and princesses. What made them even more depressed was that even consecrated people like them had to make an appointment in advance to see Princess Tianqing. It wasn't that easy, and Princess Tianqing would come to see Yi Shiwen every 2 to 3 days. But Yi Shiwen was still very arrogant, often shutting the door in front of Princess Tianqing. This caused them to feel even more unbalanced in their hearts. Why? Why? They were all consecrators, so why could this fellow act so arrogantly, while they had to seek an audience with Princess Tianqing in advance? If one were to say that Princess Tianqing had some respect for them, then for this fellow, it was simply a bit of flattery. To them, this was simply intolerable. As the saying goes, if you can't bear it, there's no need to bear it anymore. On this day, the top experts of the princess's mansion all gathered in a secret room. In the blink of an eye, dozens of people were sitting at the side. The weakest among them were peak heaven realm experts. Although such experts couldn't be considered top experts, they could definitely be considered experts of a region. There were quite a few king-level experts sitting in the front row. In addition, there was a profound realm old man in a luxurious robe sitting in the seat of honor. Almost all of the revered elders in the princess mansion were here. Old Een, if we continue like this, I'm afraid that Her Royal Highness will forget us. Right now, Her Royal Highness only remembers that gigolo. How would she remember us? Yes, that's right. Look at how arrogant that brat is. Even if Her Royal Highness personally went there, he actually shut the door in front of her. If this continues, where will we have a foothold in the future? Old Een, you can't let this situation continue. This fellow is obviously here to pick a fight. These revered elders all talked at once. They could all feel the threat of Yi Shiwen. Originally, Princess Tianqing didn't come here very frequently. Although she respected them, it could only be regarded as keeping a respectful distance. However, since Yi Shiwen came, the number of times that Princess Tianqing came here had obviously increased, and it was far more than before. Even so, Yi Shiwen actually dared to shut the door in front of Princess Tianqing. Even if they wanted to see her, they couldn't see her. This guy actually dared to do this. For them, it was simply a blatant provocation. Moreover, for them, although the treatment of the Princess Palace was not as good as that of the royal palaces, but it was still a piece of fat meat. Just the annual cultivation resources that the Princess Palace bestowed to them were far beyond their original expectations. So, they were reluctant to leave at this time. But at this time, Yi Shiwen had appeared, which made them feel a strong threat. If this situation continued, then Princess Tianqing might really ignore them. Nonsense. No matter how strong he is only one person. Does Her Royal Highness want him to take action for everything? If that's the case, I'm afraid that he won't do it. So you don't have to worry. The old man in luxurious robes calmly said, seemingly unmoved. He was very clear about what these people were thinking. Didn't they want him to stand up for them? These people didn't dare to provoke Yi Shiwen, but he did. As the only profound life realm expert in the princess mansion, even Princess Tianqing's attitude towards him was completely different. It was completely different from how she treated other people. Profound life realm experts would receive courteous treatment no matter where they went. No one dared to look down on the opinion of a profound life realm expert. If he personally took action, then even if Princess Tianqing was furious, she wouldn't punish them. Moreover, the law doesn't punish the masses. They didn't believe that Princess Tianqing would chase all of them away for a single person. Moreover, they had worked hard for Princess Tianqing for many years. Even if they didn't make any contributions, they had still worked hard. How could this newcomer be compared to them? However, he wasn't fooled. Regardless of what Yi Shiwen did, he was the only profound life realm expert in the mansion. His position wouldn't be challenged or shaken. As for how the people below him would compete, it had nothing to do with him. Everyone couldn't help but feel a headache when they saw that old Een wasn't moved. They didn't have the courage to personally go against Princess Tianqing. However, they were unwilling to give up. Old Een, it might not matter to someone at your level. However, it's different for us. If this continues, perhaps Her Highness won't need us in the future. That's right. Please save us, Old Een. The most important thing is that I can't see through his strength, and the princess is so attentive. In my opinion, there is only one possibility, and that is that this person is from a famous sect. Otherwise, how could he be like this? He is definitely just a scout. Once he has a firm foothold, many experts from the sect will come. Even you, Elder Een, will find it difficult to fight against so many people. At this time, an old woman at the king level said in a sinister manner. Moreover, the most important thing is that I can't see through his strength, and Her Royal Highness is so solicitous. These words immediately resonated with everyone. Indeed, this person was very young and didn't seem to be a very powerful person, but Princess Tianqing was so attentive towards him. In their opinion, there was only one reason, and that was this Yi Shiwen was simply a disciple of a famous sect. For individual cultivators like them, encountering a disciple of a famous sect was the most dreadful thing. How could an ordinary person compete with these disciples who had been nurtured by the great forces with all their heart and soul? They weren't even on the same level. If they could compete with these great forces, then the disciples of these big sects wouldn't need to be consecrated by Princess Tianqing. Instead, they would be sent to a place like the 13th Prince's Palace. Although they would all be consecrated, the difference in status and income between the two sides was very obvious. Naturally, they wouldn't want someone to snatch their rice bowl. After hearing those words, Old Een, who originally had no interest in taking action, started to hesitate. Although he had already stepped into the profound life stage, he was still a loose cultivator. Compared to the other loose cultivators who had yet to reach the profound life stage, he was naturally a sovereign who ruled over everything. No one could go against his will. However, everything would be different if the other party was a disciple of a big sect. Even if he were to face this person, he would be very restrained, let alone others. Moreover, if this big force sent a large number of people to settle in and form their own faction, and these people were driven away, then he would become a loner even if he had formidable strength. He wouldn't be as free and unfettered as he was now. You're right. No matter what, this Yi Shiwen has repeatedly refused Princess Tianqing. He's too arrogant. Let me go and beat him up. I'll make him understand that if he wants to be a consecrated guest of the Princess Palace, then he must abide by the rules here. This isn't a place where he can do whatever he wants. Old Een immediately said, although there was only a small possibility of this conjecture, but even if there was only a small possibility, he wouldn't let it happen. Otherwise, he wouldn't be far from being ostracized. That's right, Old Een, we support you. Old Een, let's go together. Let's let this kid know what rules are. Yi Shiwen was quietly standing in the courtyard on this day. He was comprehending the world's great way. He had been constantly disturbed by Princess Tianqing. Therefore, it was impossible for him to go into closed-door training. He could only comprehend the world's great way bit by bit like this. For an ordinary person, they would need to comprehend the world's great way very deeply in order to make progress. Then, their strength would suddenly increase explosively. However, Yi Shiwen had the mysterious space. He could do it at any time, so it didn't matter to him. Even a little bit of comprehension could be transformed into strength. However, he was still somewhat surprised when he saw the intruding consecrated guests. Chapter 1819. Yi Shiwen was a little surprised when he saw these consecrated experts breaking in. One must know that he didn't have any dealings with these consecrated experts. He didn't want to have any dealings with them. Therefore, he didn't have any communication with them since the day he came in. It could be said that he lived in seclusion. In fact, it could even be said that he didn't want to come out. He just planned to hide in the princess mansion for a few months. He would leave when the undead spirit frenzy started. He didn't plan to stay in the princess mansion for a long time. Therefore, he didn't need to build a good relationship with these consecrated experts. He didn't even want to meet them. However, he understood something when he saw these consecrated experts coming to his door. There were some things that he couldn't avoid even if he wanted to. It wasn't something that he couldn't ignore even if he wanted to. "May I know why you have come to my door this time?" Yi Shiwen asked indifferently. This caused the originally menacing worshippers to look at each other in dismay. This brat was not just arrogant. Could it be that he had not sensed it at all? At this time, they remembered that this kid didn't even greet them since he came in. Yi Shiwen didn't want to have any dealings with them. However, in their opinion, this was a sign of arrogance. Why? Why are you so arrogant? How can you completely ignore us? Kid, you must know where you are standing now. Since you have joined the consecrated experts of the Princess Mansion, you must abide by our rules. At this time, the king-level old woman said in a sinister manner. She looked at Yi Shiwen with a rather unfriendly expression. Rules? What rules? Why don't I know about them? Yi Shiwen said indifferently. A disdainful smile flashed across the corner of his mouth. At this time, he had already guessed what these people were thinking. Kid, since you have come here, then you must abide by our rules. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you are favored by Princess Tianqing. Another king-level expert stood up and said. He was obviously very envious and jealous of Yi Shiwen's arrogant behavior. Why? Why does he have the right to do so? Get straight to the point. I don't have time to play with you, Yi Shiwen said directly. Instantly, these worshippers had the urge to vomit blood. They had come here in such an overbearing manner. But in his mouth, it had become a joke. This was like a child looking for an adult to play with. But the adult said, "Don't play, be good. Uncle is busy." This was the feeling that made them feel humiliated. That's right, this was a blatant humiliation. Human, don't be too arrogant. Although you were brought back by Her Royal Highness, you're nothing in our eyes. There are many capable people in the Princess Mansion. You're nothing. If you're sensible, you'd better listen to our instructions. Otherwise, we'll teach you a lesson. At this moment, a burly man with the back of a tiger and the waist of a bear walked out. As he walked, the entire ground shook with every step he took. Yi Shiwen could see at a glance that this was clearly a black bear demon. He didn't know what kind of demon beast bloodline had been contaminated in his body, but he had already cultivated to the king level. Such a cultivation could be regarded as a demon king, even in ancient times. However, Yi Shiwen was a little annoyed in his heart as they kept coming to his door. Princess Tianqing had come to his door several times during this period of time, and he hadn't even been able to go into closed-door training. He was already a little irritated, and these worshippers were even more aggressive at this time, which made him a little angry. At this time, how could he not see that these worshippers were clearly afraid that he would divide Princess Tianqing's favor? So, they wanted him to obediently surrender to them. He was so angry that he had the urge to laugh. For them, obtaining the favor of Princess Tianqing was a life-changing opportunity. But for him, this was simply insignificant. However, how could he explain this to them? As the saying goes, how could a sparrow understand the ambitions of a great swan? Yi Shiwen felt as if a scholar had met a soldier, but couldn't reason with him. They had a different set of logical thinking, and were simply not on the same channel as Yi Shiwen. He coldly glanced at the black bear demon, and then said, "Capable people? How come I don't see a single one of them? They're just a bunch of trash." He had already decided not to back down. The more he backed down, the more these people would think that he was easy to bully, and the more troublesome things would come in the future. What? What did you say? Arrogant. Savage. These worshippers immediately became enraged and roared in anger. Although they could not compare to the worshippers of the king's mansions, They believed that they could be considered as experts in this world. Otherwise, they would not have been recruited by Princess Tianqing. Furthermore, there was even a profound life realm expert like old Yin among them. Yi Shiwen had thought that victory was already within his grasp, and that it would be a piece of cake to capture him. However, in the face of their overbearing aura, Yi Shiwen was immediately scared out of his wits. It was simply impossible for him to continue to be arrogant. Who would have thought that not only did he not soften, but on the contrary, he became even more arrogant. The dignified Princess Tianqing's worshippers had unexpectedly become trash in his mouth. This was simply preposterous. Uncle might be able to endure it, but Aunt couldn't. I'm not talking nonsense. If you were really that useful, then why would Princess Tianqing look for me? Yi Shiwen raised the corner of his mouth and said disdainfully. Yi Shiwen's words made them choke, and they suddenly became speechless. Indeed, as Yi Shiwen had said, if they were really that useful, then why would Princess Tianqing go through so much trouble to invite Yi Shiwen? Moreover, why would she go to visit Yi Shiwen again and again? This was an attitude that they had never seen before. Thinking of this, they had the urge to die. This was like a slap in the face by Yi Shiwen. They didn't know about the matter between Yi Shiwen and Princess Tianqing, and only thought that Princess Tianqing disliked them for being useless. Otherwise, she wouldn't have acted like this. At this time, thinking about it, they felt somewhat wronged, although they couldn't compare with the Prince Tianqing's worshippers, but it couldn't be said that they were useless either. I don't understand the rules, and I don't care what rules you have, but if you want to impose your own set of rules on me, then you've found the wrong person, Yi Shiwen said mercilessly. If you think that I've taken away the favor of your Princess Tianqing, then you can go and tell her yourself, and tell her not to bother me. This way it will be good for you, good for me, and good for everyone. Arrogant, arrogant. At this time, that old man's face had already turned red with anger. After hearing Yi Shiwen's words, what had they become? They had simply become self-pitying guys because they didn't have anyone's favor. Did he think that they were 3-year-old children? I think you're courting death. That bear demon was angry and constantly roared. At this time, the old woman opened her mouth and said, "Go kill him. He has already been poisoned by me. His limbs should be soft by now, and he shouldn't have any strength left." Humph, humph. This old woman's poison is not ordinary poison. It is refined from 49 kinds of poisonous insects. It is colorless and odorless, and can't be detected in the sky. At this time, those poisonous insect eggs and the poisonous fog should have completely hatched by now. You should be feeling the heart-wrenching pain now. The old woman laughed strangely. Her voice was dry and hoarse, and it was very unpleasant to hear, just like a crow's. Ha ha ha, old woman. You've finally used your annoying poison in the right place this time. That bear demon laughed out loud. It was obvious that he had suffered a lot from these poisons on a daily basis. In fact, he wasn't afraid of anyone else, but this old woman was the only person he was afraid of besides an old man. After saying that, he directly strode towards Yi Shiwen to kill. It was precisely because they were opponents that he had the most confidence in this old woman's poison technique. In fact, he was even more confident than she herself. His palm directly changed back into a bear's paw, and directly tore through the air with a terrible roar, and slapped towards Yi Shiwen on the spot. And just when everyone thought that Yi Shiwen was dead for sure, and would certainly be clawed to death by this slap, they heard a huge roar of gold and iron colliding. Everyone thought that the bear's paw was invincible, but it was actually blocked by Yi Shiwen. Moreover, it was blocked by just one finger. Just one finger had completely blocked the bear's all-out attack. What was even more terrifying was that everyone saw that the finger was like a long thorn, and it directly pierced through the bear's paw. Blood splashed out, and bone fragments flew everywhere. Roar! This bear demon constantly screamed and constantly roared. He didn't expect that his palm, which was as hard as gold and iron, would be so easily pierced by someone, and it was even done with a finger. Is that all? Really disappointing, and you still dare to say that you are not trash? The corner of Yi Shiwen's mouth twitched, and a bit of disdain and sneer flashed. Then, a golden light flashed, and a huge palm formed in the air on the spot and directly slapped towards the bear's face. Bang! With a loud collision sound, this bear demon directly let out a muffled groan and was sent flying. His majestic body directly flew out of the courtyard and fiercely crashed into a nearby barrier, smashing the barrier into pieces, and then directly fainted. His skull was smashed into smithereens. Impossible! My poison can't be so easily detoxified, the old woman said in disbelief. You want to deal with me with only this level of poison? Don't be ridiculous. Chapter 1820. You want to deal with me with this level of poison? Don't be ridiculous. A disdainful smile flashed across the corner of Yi Xuan's mouth. An ordinary person's strength was only on the surface of their muscles. However, Yi Xuan's tyrannical tyrant body had penetrated deep into his bones, internal organs, and even every cell of his body was as strong as iron. It could even kill a dragon. Moreover, it was a poisonous fog produced by a mere king-level expert. This poisonous fog was indeed extraordinary. It was colorless and odorless. However, Yi Xuan could feel it as soon as he inhaled it. But he had completely dissolved it in a matter of seconds. This is impossible. The old woman's eyes were wide open. Her eyes were filled with a look of disbelief. She couldn't believe that things had turned out like this. It's impolite not to reciprocate. I don't want to cause trouble in the princess residence. But do you really think that I'm a clay figurine without a temper? Yi Xuan moved in an instant. He spread out his big hand. Suddenly, a golden light pervaded the entire void and covered everything. Everyone lost sleep all of a sudden. There was no time to react at all. They only heard a scream. Everyone only saw that the old woman was sent flying by Yi Xuan on the spot. She hit the ground fiercely, and the entire ground was completely cracked. The old woman was also slapped to the ground like a lump of mud. Yi Xuan, you are too arrogant. How dare you treat us in the princess residence? An old man narrowed his eyes at this time. He could already feel that Yi Xuan was a threat to him. Yi Xuan had just arrived, but he was already so arrogant. What would happen if he allowed Yi Xuan to continue? Don't talk nonsense. Did you remember that this is the princess residence when you came here? Yi Xuan glanced at an old man and didn't show the slightest bit of politeness. You were so arrogant. In that case, this old man will teach you a lesson. I will let you know what it means to have an order of seniority. An old man coldly snorted and directly attacked. He spread out his big hand, and the temperature in the void instantly dropped. Endless snowflakes condensed into a blizzard. With an old man's palm as the core, it formed a huge cyclone that swept towards Yi Xuan. The void was completely frozen wherever it passed. It had completely turned into a world of ice crystals. This was another expert at the initial stage of Profound Life Realm. He was also the chief among the many consecrated experts of Princess Tianqing. No one had ever dared to challenge his position. But this Yi Xuan was actually so arrogant. For the sake of the princess, I won't kill you. However, I will cripple your martial arts. I will let you know the price of making mistakes and saying the wrong things. Killing intent flickered in an old man's eyes. He didn't find Yi Xuan pleasing to the eye before. But now, he wanted to get rid of Yi Xuan as soon as possible. He had a faint premonition that his position as the chief consecrated expert under Princess Tianqing would be shaken if he couldn't get rid of Yi Xuan. Then he would be replaced. Everyone couldn't help but be shocked when they saw an old man attack. They had never seen such a tyrannical side of an old man. This was the true tyrannical strength of a profound realm expert. Even the king-level experts couldn't help but have their complexions change when they saw this scene. They were trembling with fear. They could sense that if Elder Een wanted to kill all of them, then he could do so effortlessly. The difference in status between them was just too great. Everyone rejoiced once again at this time. They hadn't tried to challenge an old man's position. Otherwise, they would have died a very ugly death. Profound life stage experts are truly frighteningly strong, especially old Een, who has already stepped into the profound life stage for a few thousand years. His cultivation has long reached an inconceivable level. That's right. This Yishiwen is going to die this time. Humph! Let him be arrogant. Cripple my martial arts? I want to see what you're capable of. Yishiwen sneered. His eyes were like an ice-cold immortal sword that could pierce through everything. He wasn't afraid of Old Man's crushing, imposing aura. He tore open the vast sky with one hand as he spoke. The snowstorm cyclone that was coming towards him was torn into pieces on the spot. His golden light was like a wave. It crushed everything. No one could stop him. What? Old Man was shocked by Yishiwen's sudden eruption. He hadn't expected that Yishiwen would be able to break his attack so tyrannically. It was simply inconceivable. Profound life realm. You're also in the profound life realm, Old Ian said in a somewhat shocked manner. Yishiwen still had a calm appearance, and didn't reveal even the slightest bit of aura belonging to a profound life realm expert. However, he could instantly determine that if Yishiwen wasn't a profound life realm expert, how could Yishiwen break his attack so easily? Even the strongest expert of the King Division couldn't do it. Old Man's words shocked the other consecrated experts. Yishiwen was actually in the profound life realm. They couldn't tell. They couldn't tell at all. In fact, they couldn't even see the strength of a king-tier expert. If not for the fact that he was especially favored by Princess Tianqing, they wouldn't have paid any attention to him, even if he was standing by the side of the road. However, it was this person who had taught them an extremely important lesson. 2 king-tier experts had been defeated by him, like little chicks. It was impossible for such a person to not be at the profound life stage. However, this is as far as you can go. It's meaningless in front of me, even if you're at the profound life realm. My thousands of years of cultivation are enough to crush everything. Old Ian coldly snorted. He didn't believe that Yishiwen was that strong. Old Man slapped his palm towards Yishiwen once again. Amidst the wind and snow, there was the aura of a powerful army. Bang! 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 A series of intense collisions rang out. Old Man continued to bombard Yishiwen. However, Yishiwen didn't give way. He didn't give way at all and directly fought with Old Man. Huge explosions rang out. Frightening undulations caused the enchantments in the Princess Mansion to come to life. The scale of the battle was such that the two of them didn't go all out. Otherwise, the fight between 2 profound life realm experts was enough to cause the sky to collapse and the earth to crack. The onlookers couldn't believe that old Ian, who had cultivated for thousands of years, should have had the upper hand. However, Yishiwen had beaten him so hard that he was out of breath. In fact, he had been defeated again and again. Old Man couldn't defend a single line of defense. He was directly bombarded by Yishiwen. Old Man kept retreating. His old face was now flushed red. This was the result of Yishiwen's bombardment. At this time, he was horrified to find that Yishiwen in front of him was simply like a human-shaped Tyrannosaurus. The strength that he was proud of was not worth mentioning in front of Yishiwen. In just 2 or 3 moves, he was completely defeated. Didn't you say that you want to cripple my martial arts? Is this all you've got? Yishiwen taunted him mercilessly. This made Old Man feel as if he couldn't keep his face. He had broken away from the majority of people ever since he had stepped into the profound life realm. He had become aloof and aloof. He hadn't been ridiculed like this in a long time. I'll fight you to the death. Old Man rushed towards Yishiwen as he roared. The blood and chi on his body were burning to the extreme. His imposing aura had climbed to the peak. It was as if a heavy mountain was crushing over. It's time to stop, Yishiwen shouted loudly. He clenched his fist, and endless golden light began to condense. It transformed into a golden universe and blasted out with a loud bang. The entire cosmos fiercely collided with Elder Yin's body. Elder Yin was immediately sent flying like a kite with a broken string. After fiercely smashing through several barriers, he fell to the ground. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. Silence. Everyone was shocked. They hadn't expected that Yishiwen would be so ferocious. An expert at the initial stage of the profound life realm couldn't even withstand 1,000 moves from him. They could even feel that he clearly hadn't used his full strength. He was still in a skillful state. Just how deep was his foundation? Just how unfathomable was his strength? It was only at this moment that they finally realized why Princess Tianqing was so fond of him and why she would lower herself to look for him so many times. It wasn't because he was a disciple of a big sect like some people thought. Instead, it was because he truly possessed such strength. An old man was already the #1 expert in their residence. However, even he had been easily crushed by Yi Shiwen. One could well imagine how tyrannical Yi Shiwen was. It would not be too much to rope in such an expert. This was something they could naturally imagine. It was ridiculous that they had wanted to teach Yi Shiwen a lesson. However, it seemed that it was a joke now. They couldn't afford to offend such an expert no matter what. It was not something they could stop at all. At the same time, everyone became somewhat frightened. They had come to look for trouble with Yi Shiwen. They had thought that the law didn't punish the masses. Even Princess Tianqing couldn't do anything to them. However, they hadn't expected that Yi Shiwen would be so ferocious. He had casually crippled 2 experts of the king rank and 1 expert of the profound life realm. How could such a ferocious person of this generation abide by the *T principle of not punishing the masses? They wouldn't be so good-tempered if they were in Yi Shiwen's shoes. Everyone was speechless for a long time. They looked at Yi Shiwen in shock. At this time, the sound of hurried footsteps came from outside the courtyard. The palace maid who had previously led the way for Yi Shiwen came in with an anxious look on her face. She said, "Where's Old Een? Princess Tianqing and Princess Tianqing have come again. Old Een must personally go and suppress the situation." Chapter 18:21. Where is Old Een? This time Princess Hiyu has brought people here again. Old Een must personally come out to suppress the situation. And where is Old Een? At this time, the palace maid finally noticed the mess at the scene. Originally, she only heard that they were all here, so she hurried over. Who knew that when she came to the scene, she actually saw such a messy scene? Obviously, a big battle had happened. At this time, everyone looked at each other, then looked at Yi Shiwen. The palace maid also forcibly calmed down. No matter what, she must first figure out what was going on. Yi Shiwen stepped forward and asked, "What's going on? Did Princess Hiyu bring people here again?" At this time, some information about Princess Hiyu flashed in his mind. Like Princess Tianqing, she was also one of the favorite daughters of the Dark Country's king. Princess Hiyu also had her own title at a very young age. She was even ambitious to compete for the throne. She had opened an office in the name of the Princess Mansion and recruited talents. It could be said that her reputation was not small in recent years, even not worse than many princes. Compared to her, Princess Tianqing's reputation was a little worse. However, the relationship between her and Princess Tianqing was the worst. Because of the relationship between both sides competing for favor, it had developed into a relationship of fire and water. As for more information, he did not have it. These were all introduced by Qin Lai on the way. Because whether it was Princess Tianqing or Princess Hiyu, they were all ambitious people who wanted to become a generation's empress. Some people even listed them as candidates for the throne, so it attracted Qin Lai's attention. Otherwise, how could the Dark Country's king take care of so many princes and princesses one by one? That's right. This time around, I've heard that Princess Hiyu has recruited a young genius. Now, he has even arrogantly come knocking on our door, saying that he wants to spar with our highness. That young genius has already stepped into the profound life stage, and only Old Een is able to suppress him. Therefore, our highness has sent me to find Old Een and head to the front hall together. The palace maid said in an orderly manner. Yi Shiwen had calmed down at this time and could roughly guess what was going on. So many people had gathered at Yi Shiwen's side, so it was naturally impossible for them to come for a friendly visit. Even though she was a female official, she was aware of the open and veiled strife and intrigue between these honored cultivators. She was even very clear that there was no place in the princess mansion that was free of intrigue and intrigue. Furthermore, Princess Tianqing had the bloodline of the demon race flowing through her veins, and many of the servants and consecrators in the residence also had the bloodline of the demon race. These people had also been influenced by the bloodline of the demon race, becoming cruel, bloodthirsty, and incomparably sinister. As far as she was concerned, these open and veiled struggles were nothing more than child's play. Princess Tianqing had visited Yi Shiwen several times during this period of time, and many people in the princess residence had started to complain about this. Everyone felt that the princess was too good to Yi Shiwen. Even they, the consecrators, did not receive such good treatment. Although they did not say it out loud, everyone knew that they were the ones who were complaining and dissatisfied. How could they not understand the situation at this time when they saw the scene? They must have come to look for trouble, but they had kicked an iron plate. She couldn't help but sneer and disdain in her heart. These people were pig brains. Didn't they think about what kind of person Princess Tianqing was? How could an ordinary person enter her eyes? Even those so-called geniuses in the capital city were no different from pigs in her eyes. This Yi Shiwen was able to obtain the favor of Princess Tianqing. Naturally, he was not an ordinary person. He even dared to provoke her. He must be tired of living. Moreover, she had accompanied Princess Tianqing to look for Yi Shiwen during this period of time. So, she could clearly see that Princess Tianqing had never regarded him as a subordinate. Both of them were on equal footing. In fact, Yi Shiwen had even faintly appeared to be superior. She didn't say anything. However, she had kept everything in mind. She had secretly listed this person as a person who could not be provoked. And these people actually wanted to provoke him. It was really ridiculous. However, this old Een, she looked somewhat embarrassed. She looked at old Een, who was lying on the ground. It was unknown whether he was alive or dead. Then, she looked at Yi Shiwen. It was precisely because of the relationship between Yi Shiwen and Princess Tianqing that she didn't dare to command Yi Shiwen. She couldn't count on Yi Shiwen's help unless it was a last resort. Otherwise, she couldn't count on Yi Shiwen to help her. Yi Shiwen pondered for a moment and said, "Take me there. No matter what, I can't just ignore everything since I become a consecrated guest of your princess mansion." He understood in his heart that no matter what Princess Tianqing's motive was, he was indebted to Princess Tianqing. Most importantly, it wasn't a good idea to owe her a favor. As the saying goes, help someone get rid of a calamity. He still had this bit of quality. That's great. With Mr. Yi personally taking action, that guy won't be a problem at all. The palace maid suddenly became happy and said, "Lead the way." Yi Shiwen said. The palace maid hurriedly led the way. They walked past the pavilions and came to the front hall. The front hall of the princess mansion was used by Princess Tianqing to entertain distinguished guests. "Hello, Mr. Yi. May Mr. Yi live a long life." The servants along the way greeted Yi Shiwen one after another. They couldn't afford to offend any of the consecrated guests, no matter what they thought. Yi Shiwen directly stepped into the front hall. At this time, he saw a woman sitting on the guest seat in the front hall. This woman was wearing a magnificent golden robe. Although it was a very vulgar attire, but on her body there was a bit of a rich and noble aura, and there was a bit of an unquestionable taste in her. Her beautiful face looked a bit tranquil. She glanced at Yi Shiwen. Then she retracted her gaze. It seemed that she didn't want to waste any thoughts on Yi Shiwen. She didn't pay any attention to him at all. Yi Shiwen's gaze only glanced at her. Then he saw another figure. This person was about 20 years old. He was dressed in a warrior's outfit. He looked very smart and capable. His handsome face was full of arrogance. His arms were crossed, and his expression was cold. When he saw Yi Shiwen coming in, he just glanced at him. Then he retracted his gaze in disdain. It seemed that he couldn't feel any threat from Yi Shiwen. At this time, the person sitting on the main seat was none other than Princess Tianqing. When she saw that the person who came in was Yi Shiwen, she was a little surprised. However, she returned to normal in an instant. She felt that Yi Shiwen's arrival was very strange in her heart. However, she didn't show it on her face. Moreover, Yi Shiwen's strength was far above that of old Yin's in her opinion. So, what could be better than having him as the overseer? Even Yi Shiwen himself didn't know that Princess Tianqing could understand Yi Shiwen's information through her cousin, Man Yun. Perhaps even Yi Shiwen himself didn't know. Sister, is this the consecrator in your residence? He's so young. I remember that the first consecrator in your residence is Old Een. Why isn't he here? At this time, the woman said with a sweet smile. However, her tone was full of harshness. It was obvious that she didn't care about Yi Shiwen at all. She even felt that Yi Shiwen and Yi Shiwen weren't even qualified to be on equal footing. Moreover, she requested for Old Een to come. It was obvious that she was looking down on the other consecrators. This immediately caused Tianqing's expression to turn somewhat ugly. Although the two of them appeared to be on par with each other over the years, Princess Hiyu's development was much better than his. She actually had a few profound life stage experts under her command, and was in no way inferior to the popular princess. The reason was that she was willing to put down her pride and use her beauty to tempt the other party. This was something that Princess Tianqing couldn't do at all. Therefore, over the years, due to various reasons, both of them had entered a white-hot stage after they began to recruit talents. However, she had never gained the upper hand. Every time Princess Hiyu recruited a talent, she would bring him to Princess Tianqing so that she could take a good look at him. Princess Tianqing said that she wanted to exchange pointers with him. However, Princess Tianqing was very clear that she was here to show off and show off. However, she had no way to refuse. Even if she had an excuse to refuse, she wouldn't choose to refuse. Otherwise, the rumor that Princess Tianqing wasn't as good as Princess Hiyu would instantly spread throughout the capital. Princess Hiyu would definitely add fuel to the fire. She believed that her sister, Princess Hiyu, was definitely someone who would do such a thing. She was thinking about how to reply when she saw Yi Shiwen step forward and say, "Your Highness must be joking." As the saying goes, one's age doesn't determine one's ambition. This little brother that Your Highness has brought seems to be quite young. However, he can become a consecrator of Your Highness' residence. He obviously didn't rely on his beauty. Yi Shiwen's ridicule made Princess Hiyu and the young man's complexion turn ashen. They had been proudly ridiculing Princess Tianqing. However, Yi Shiwen had now turned the tables on them. He was insinuating that this young man had relied on his beauty to bewitch Princess Hiyu. Otherwise, how could he have gotten this opportunity? This was an extraordinary shame and humiliation for the young man. It was an insult that could anger a person to death. Chapter 1822. However, at this moment, he could only turn red with anger. He had no way to refute. That was because, in reality, he had relied on his own strength to ascend to the throne. However, there was indeed an unclear relationship between him and Princess Hiyu. This was a very normal thing in the Dark Nation. Many princesses in the Dark Nation were raising handsome men. This was the same principle as princes having multiple wives. Originally, he was always proud of being able to hook up with a princess, but now he suddenly hated this matter. Hooking up with a princess was indeed a glorious thing, but now it had become something that others criticized. Who knew that Yi Shiwen's sarcasm was not only reflected at this time? Yi Shiwen just smiled slightly and said, "I also know this. That is just my guess. Naturally, it can't be like this." However, Her Royal Highness asked why Old Een did not come. It is really because there is no need to use a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. As long as I am such an opponent, it is enough. This young man almost spat out a mouthful of blood. What do you mean by there is no need to use a butcher's knife to kill a chicken? Old Een is indeed a well-known profound life realm expert. However, he is also a profound life realm expert and a famous genius. How can this be considered as using a butcher's knife to kill a chicken? How can he say that? Princess Hiyu was also annoyed by Yi Shiwen. She hadn't even spoken much, but Yi Shiwen had already rebuked her twice. Moreover, she was so angry that she almost died. At this time, only Princess Tianqing showed a satisfied expression on her face. Although Yi Shiwen was usually arrogant like an alien, he was still reliable at critical times. At this time, he came to help her vent her anger. It was not in vain for her to visit him several times previously. This favor was indeed not in vain. How can you speak like this? I am talking to my sister. Since when did you have the right to speak? Princess Yu immediately said in a sharp voice. Princess, please be careful with your words. Although I am an imperial consecrator, but I am not a servant of the imperial family. I don't think that I am inferior to anyone. I am merely working for Princess Tianqing. That's all. You don't have the qualifications to teach me a lesson. Yi Shiwen's face was stiff as he raised his eyebrows and said rudely. He had angered Princess Yu to the point that she was seething with anger. In the past, he had always had the upper hand in the competition with Princess Tianqing. Every time, he would be able to infuriate Princess Tianqing. This time, he had come purely to show off and be arrogant. Who knew that they would encounter Yi Shiwen, a person who didn't play cards according to common sense? For the people of the royal family, unless one was a disciple of some colossus, then even if one was a consecrated person, one could only be a servant. But even so, he couldn't say it out loud. Otherwise, who would dare to work for the royal family in the future? Sister, is this how you discipline your subordinates? Seeing that she couldn't do anything to Yi Shiwen, she had no choice but to shift her target to Princess Tianqing. Princess Tianqing was in a good mood at this time. She just smiled and said, Sister, don't be angry. Young people are inevitably a bit arrogant. Their bad tempers are like this. Princess Yu was so angry that she wanted to vomit blood. She was seething with anger, and her face was suffused with a strange flush. She was really angry. You two, master and servant, are working together to anger me? I don't want to play anymore. I'm leaving. Princess Yu was about to stand up and roar. At this time, she suddenly remembered that it wasn't Princess Tianqing who had come to cause trouble today. It was her and Princess Yu. At this time, this pair of master and servant had angered her to leave. Wouldn't that make it seem like she had lost to Princess Tianqing? Thinking of this, her buttocks could only stiffly stay in place. She didn't leave her position anymore. She pressed down and said, Young people? It seems that they are also young heroes. Sister, it seems that you have also recruited an extraordinary person. She glanced at Princess Tianqing, and her expression changed in an instant. It seemed as if she wasn't the one who had been angered to the point of Aunt Sheng a moment ago. Yi Shiwen couldn't help but gasp in amazement. He wouldn't have been able to maintain his composure if he had been in Princess Tianqing's place. How can I compare with you? You often recruit some famous people. Princess Tianqing still had a smile on her face. She politely declined. However, this is also good. My subordinate, Jin Han, is also a genius. He was an outstanding and famous person in his clan. It's just a coincidence. Why don't we let them compare notes with each other? We can also get to know each other better. Young geniuses like them should compare notes with each other and get to know each other better, right? Princess Yu said with a smile. She took a sip of tea and then looked at Princess Tianqing. It seemed as if she was waiting for her to agree. This was her real purpose. She had been irritated by Yi Shiwen's words. However, she couldn't curse Yi Shiwen like a shrew. So, she thought of her purpose of coming here. Wasn't it to suppress Princess Tianqing's prestige and suppress her arrogance? What was the use of this person's words? It was useless even if he could say anything. The winner would be decided as soon as they exchanged blows. He only knew how to talk glibly. There was no use at all. She had full confidence in her subordinate, Jin Han. Otherwise, she wouldn't have tried so hard to recruit him. Do you dare to accept the challenge? Jin Han also stepped forward at this time. He glanced at Yi Shiwen and said coldly. His eyes were full of killing intention. He was seething with anger because of Yi Shiwen. It was an extraordinary shame and humiliation. He instantly attacked at this time. He didn't even care whether Yi Shiwen would agree or not. He was going to attack and suppress Yi Shiwen. Elder sister, this isn't good, Princess Tianqing couldn't help but say. She couldn't help but feel a little gloomy at the fact that Lin Yun was insisting on a competition. Don't worry. Jin Han has a sense of propriety. I'm just making him suffer a little. I'll let him understand that he can eat whatever he wants, but he can't speak carelessly. At the same time, I'll suppress his arrogance so that you can discipline him more easily in the future. At this time, Princess Hiyu's face couldn't help but flash with a proud look. It was obvious that they were the ones who were going to attack. However, it seemed like they were doing it for Princess Tianqing's good. I know that you don't seem to have any talents in your hands. However, you can't tolerate these people even if you lack talents. Our royal family rules the vast territory of the Dark Nation. You represent the royal family's face. You can't lose it like this. It just so happens that I, your elder sister, will help you suppress his arrogance. It will be much easier to subdue him in the future. He looked at Princess Tianqing proudly. It seemed like he wanted to see a bit of anger on her face. Then, it would look even more perfect with her words. Who knew that when he looked at Princess Tianqing's face, he didn't have the slightest look of worry at all. On the contrary, there was a bit of an inexplicable look on her face. She turned her head to look at Princess Hiyu and said, "Elder sister is right. Talents always need a little arrogance. It's good to suppress him. However, it's hard to say who will suppress who." Although she couldn't control Yi Shiwen, she understood him very well. His strength was unfathomable. There was nothing to worry about. Sure enough, just as they were talking, they suddenly saw endless golden light burst out from Yi Shiwen's body. It suddenly turned into a wave and swept out in all directions. It was as if he had suddenly returned to the ancient battlefield. The golden spears and armored horses were decisive. Just when everyone thought that Yi Shiwen was going to suffer a loss, he directly made a move and pushed Jin Han's attack away with one hand. It didn't take much effort. It was as if he had lifted something heavy as if it was light. Although Jin Han couldn't use his full strength because they were in the front hall, his attack was naturally incomparably terrifying as a profound life realm expert. Yi Shiwen casually broke through the attack. Naturally, everyone couldn't hide the shock in their hearts. For Yi Shiwen, he instantly understood Jin Han's strength. He was probably even stronger than Old Yin. He was extraordinary to be able to cultivate to this level at such a young age. Moreover, Old Yin was indeed a little too ordinary among the profound life realm experts. Is this all you've got? Yi Shiwen sneered. He took a step forward, and his mountain-like imposing aura swept over in an instant. It fell on Jin Han's body in an instant. Jin Han suddenly felt a boundless pressure instantly crushing down. His face suddenly revealed a somewhat frightened expression. He seemed to have thought of something extremely terrifying. However, Yi Shiwen didn't give him a chance to speak. He directly took a step forward and his fist turned into a star and fell down. Shattering star fist. Bang! Jin Han only had enough time to defend with all his strength. He raised his hand to block, and then a terrifying force instantly crushed his body. He only felt dizzy, and the world was spinning. Crack! He only heard a loud sound of bones breaking. After that, he only had time to let out a muffled groan. Both of his arms were directly broken. Then, at this moment, Yi Shiwen didn't have the slightest hesitation and followed up with another punch. Boom! It was another dreadful punch. The sound of a fist hitting flesh was heard. Jin Han was still feeling dizzy, so he couldn't react in time. He was hit by Yi Shiwen's punch, and his body was sent flying like a kite with a broken string. Chapter 18:23. Bang! Jin Han slammed into the ground. He twitched and rolled on the ground. Suddenly, something that no one had expected happened. Princess Hiyu was optimistic about the genius Jin Han. However, under Yi Shiwen's offensive, he was defeated in just 2 or 3 moves. This was a competition of pure physical strength. During the collision, both of Golden Frost's arms were directly broken. He looked at Yi Shiwen from the corner of his eyes. His eyes were full of fear. Is he really a humanoid monster? Is he not a human, but some other terrifying race? The physical body of a profound life realm expert was already strong to a certain extent. Ordinary attacks would not even be able to hurt their skin. However, both of his arms were broken. He had never thought that this would happen. How can this be? Princess Hiyu was stunned. The expression on her face kept changing like colorful lanterns. Her mind was in chaos. This was something she had never thought of. She had never thought that things would turn out like this. She thought she could easily humiliate this half-sister of hers again. Who would have thought that she would end up like this all of a sudden? Yi Shiwen immediately stopped after he had sent Jin Han flying with a punch. He then fixed his eyes on Jin Han and Princess Yu. I'm sorry, sister. It seems that the genius you brought is not worthy of his name. I don't know where you found him. It seems that he needs to be tested. At this time, Princess Tianqing's face was full of smiles. She had endured to the limit for all these years. Now, she could finally vent out her anger. Princess Yu was so angry that her whole body was trembling. At this moment, she finally understood how Princess Tianqing, who had always been suppressed by her, felt. Her expression constantly fluctuated, and she finally forcefully suppressed her anger. Then, she looked at Yi Shiwen and said, I wonder, what is the name of this consecrated person? Yi Shiwen said faintly. He did not take the threat of the princess of the Dark Nation seriously. I wonder if Mr. Yi has ever thought of serving me. Princess Yu said with a slight smile. Jin Han's screams were still echoing on the ground, but her expression didn't change at all, as if nothing had happened. Princess Tianqing's complexion changed as soon as she heard this. She then looked at Yi Shiwen nervously. She was afraid that he would return at this time. However, he had accepted Princess Yu's invitation. In his heart, he was also annoyed. This half-sister of his was really incomparably arrogant. They actually dared to poach people in front of her. I'm sorry, Your Royal Highness, but I don't want to change my sect for the time being. Yi Shiwen shook his head and said indifferently. That's a pity. However, if Mr. Yi has such a thought, you must contact me immediately. I think that no matter what, the treatment I can give you is unique. Princess Yu winked and said temptingly. Yi Shiwen remained calm and collected. This level of temptation couldn't move his heart in the slightest. More importantly, when he saw her attitude towards Jin Han, he felt a chill in his heart. How could he trust such a harsh person with peace of mind? Moreover, he didn't have any intention of joining anyone. Your Royal Highness, if there's nothing else, then I'll take my leave first. Yi Shiwen cupped his hands and said. Then he turned around and left. However, Princess Tianqing wasn't angry at all. On the contrary, she was exceptionally happy. Today, Yi Shiwen had helped her vent her anger. The anger that she had held back for hundreds of years had been vented in one go. Princess Yu looked at Yi Shiwen's back as he left. Her eyes were filled with uncertainty and uncertainty. Yi Shiwen returned to the courtyard where he lived. The original consecrators had all left by this time. How would they dare to find trouble with Yi Shiwen? They already knew that Yi Shiwen had entered the profound life realm. It was already good enough that Yi Shiwen didn't find trouble with them, let alone find trouble with Yi Shiwen. However, not long after Yi Shiwen returned, Princess Tianqing once again came looking for him. This time, thank you very much. If it wasn't for Mr. Yi, I'm afraid that I would have been humiliated by my sister again. Princess Tianqing looked at Yi Shiwen with a smile and said, It's nothing. Since I've become your consecrator, these things are very normal. Taking someone's money to eliminate disasters is a matter of course. Yi Shiwen said, May I know why your Royal Highness has come? This time, I've come to talk to Mr. Yi about the undead spirit frenzy that will happen 3 months later. She looked at Yi Shiwen and explained, Is there anything else that needs special attention? Yi Shiwen asked, I don't know if Mr. Yi knows about the dead spirit lord in the undead spirit abyss. Princess Tianqing asked, Dead spirit lord? Yi Shiwen asked somewhat doubtfully. Yes, that's right. It's the dead spirit lord. It seems that Mr. Yi doesn't know about it. Then let me explain. Perhaps Mr. Yi knows that many big sects have sent many experts to this undead spirit frenzy. I don't know why Mr. Yi is doing this. Princess Tianqing looked at Yi Shiwen and asked, Don't know? Yi Shiwen also felt a little strange. Could it be that they didn't come during the undead spirit frenzy in the past? In the past, when the undead spirit frenzy was launched, the various sects had sent their experts over, but none of them were like this. Princess Tianqing said, The real reason for this is the lord of the undead spirits. The dead spirit lord? Is he the master of the undead spirit abyss? Yi Shiwen asked. That's right. In the distant legends, the undead spirit abyss wasn't formed by normal means. Instead, it was formed by the incarnation of a deity, the dead spirit lord's divine kingdom. Princess Tianqing said, "A deity? Moreover, he wasn't an ordinary deity. Even among the many deities, he was the most powerful existence. It is said that he used to rule the undead spirit abyss and was even the most powerful deity in the entire Xian world. Later on, it is said that he died and his divine body was buried in his divine kingdom. Later on, his divine kingdom turned into the undead spirit abyss and evolved into the undead spirit world." Princess Tianqing said. Yishuan didn't know how terrifying the former undead spirit lord was. However, he could imagine that the undead spirit lord was an extremely powerful person based on these words alone. The undead spirit abyss, which had left many big sects in the entire Xian world completely helpless, was actually formed by the dead spirit lord's divine kingdom. From this, it could be seen that the dead spirit lord's strength had reached a level that Yi Shiwen couldn't reach. Then, what does this undead spirit frenzy have to do with the dead spirit lord? Yi Shiwen asked. The reason is very simple. Some powerful people have calculated that this undead spirit frenzy will happen when the tomb of the dead spirit lord opens in the undead spirit abyss. Although the tomb of the dead spirit lord has opened in the past, no one has been able to get close to the undead spirit abyss due to the endless number of dead spirits surrounding it. Moreover, this undead spirit frenzy coincides with the opening of the tomb of the dead spirit lord. It only happens once in hundreds of thousands of years. Therefore, all the big sects are so determined to get their hands on this opportunity to enter the tomb of the dead spirit lord. Princess Tianqing said. Yishuan finally understood why these top big sects had sent countless top experts at this time. Moreover, I can tell you the truth. Because of the special nature of the undead spirit abyss, all the big sects are determined to get their hands on it. The most important thing to control the undead spirit abyss is to enter the tomb of the dead spirit lord and become the successor of the dead spirit lord. Then, they will be able to control the undead spirit abyss. Princess Tianqing said while looking at Yi Shiwen's eyes. This was the real goal of all the big sections. If they could control the undead spirit abyss and become the next dead spirit lord, they would be able to use the resources of the undead spirit abyss to cultivate a steady stream of profound realm experts for their sections. Not to mention, if they could inherit the inheritance of the dead spirit lord, they might be able to cultivate a god. Wasn't this the goal they had been pursuing for countless years? To cultivate a god and become an immortal inheritance that would lead them to the ultimate glorious path. So, Your Highness is also interested in the tomb of the undead spirit abyss? Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes and said. His emotions were like a stone thrown into the water. In an instant, there were violent fluctuations and he was shaken. Initially, he wasn't interested in the undead spirit abyss and only wanted to find Hua Menghan. But now his mood had changed completely. He was very clear about his current situation. He was racing against time with the Abyssal Demon Master. If the Abyssal Demon Master were to prove his Tao first, the entire Ancient Barrens continent would be finished. It was even possible for it to sink into oblivion forever. However, if he were to prove his Tao first, everything would be reversed. To him, who had already entered the profound realm, proving his Tao was no longer something that was far away. Instead, he could already see the future. Even so, it was still extremely difficult to cross the barriers of the profound life realm and the profound death realm. The tomb of the dead spirit lord was undoubtedly a shortcut for him. If he could obtain the inheritance of the dead spirit lord, he might be able to shorten the time needed to prove his Tao and snatch it before the Abyssal Demon Master. He was extremely shocked, but his expression didn't change at all. He just looked at Princess Tianqing. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.